It's a delight to welcome Kate Seals, who's the Regional Operations Director for Royal Mail, and Nigel Morgan, the Operations Performance Leader. Is that right? I need binoculars almost. Gareth, I'm going to read my notes, it might be a bit easier. Gareth Thomas, Lead Customer Operations Manager, Worcester, is that right? And finally, but not least, Michael Hogg, Senior Public Affairs Manager, Royal Mail. It sounds like we've got the top team here this morning. So thank you for giving up your time this morning. We really do appreciate your attendance. I've got some formalities before we get into the discussion itself. So apologies and welcome.
To do the apologies?
I do.
So we've got apologies from Councillor Dave Edmonds.
Okay. It looks like we've got the full team. Other than that, looking around, we've changed the choreography of the room just a bit to make sure that if you're on the second row, you're situated between people rather than behind people. Just makes it easier to see you when you want to speak. Richard, you're particularly welcome this morning. Great to see you. But the most important person this morning actually is Jessica, because she's here on work experience, and we mustn't put her off a career in local government, if that's what she has in mind. So, welcome all. Declarations of interest and any party whip. There being none.
I just want to mention webcast.
Yeah, we are live this morning on the World Wide Web. We're being webcast, so and that will be archived as well. That is not to encourage anyone to go showboating for the use of their own social media later. If we can keep the questions nice and sharp, and if we can keep the answers really focused, we'll manage to get through a lot that way. Public participation, there is none. Confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting of the 12th of December, the 6th of January, and the 26th of January all need to be approved. I'll move them from the chair. I wonder if my vice chair might second that. Yeah, are there any dissenting voices in terms of the accuracy of the minutes of those three meetings? None.
Agreed.
That's great stuff. So the way I want to play the meeting this morning, I want to invite post office officers. Do we call you officers? What do we call you?
So Royal Mail.
Royal Mail. I still keep calling you post office. I don't know why. You split ages ago, and I'm just trying to get my head around that. It won't be the last time reference to post office this morning, when we should be talking about Royal Mail. So the way we're going to plan it this morning is Kate and her team will give us a brief presentation, no slides, no death by PowerPoint, for about 10 minutes or so. And then we'll get into some questions. And you've received the general lines of inquiry, hopefully ahead of the meeting.
We have.
Brilliant. Kate, you've got the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, councillors, for inviting me here today. As you've just heard, I'm Kate Seals. I'm the Regional Operations Director for the Midlands, so I cover 99 of the delivery offices across the Midlands and the bulk of all of the offices that are here across Worcestershire. So first and foremost, I want to apologise for any complaints that have been raised and obviously give reassurance to all of you. We take them very, very seriously. Any one complaint is one too many. We are really, really focused on improving our quality of service, and what I wanted to do today is give you a little bit of a performance update on where we are, talk about the future, and then also see if I could welcome some support and joint working with yourselves today. So, as I say, first and foremost, we do acknowledge that at times we have had impact to our service as a result of us not deploying USO reform and change. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a moment, if I may. First and foremost, in terms of the factual update that I will give just now, I'm going to focus primarily on the 7 largest offices that in the Worcestershire area, which make up Worcester, Redditch, Evesham, Bromsgrove, Malvern, Droitwich and Pershore. I acknowledge there are other areas as well within Worcestershire, and we can talk over those later as well, but I think this would just help with a little bit of positioning of where we are at the moment. So across those 7 sites, we've got circa 600 people that are working for us to make sure that obviously we can deliver for our customers on a daily basis. That covers 16 managers that are across those sites, and we take out 413 delivery routes a day, which is delivering to 219,603 delivery points, just to give a little bit of positioning in terms of the scale of the area. Now, I touched on a moment ago that we are seeing an improving trend around the overall quality of service, but I do acknowledge it isn't exactly where it needs to be, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But nationally, we have risen to 79.5% most recently, and Midlands and the Worcestershire area is tracking above that performance. We've responded well on the back of Storm Goretti, when obviously we did again see some impact to service, but really to make sure that we can hit the standard that our customers pay for, soon to be £1.80 for the stamp, to really make sure they get what they pay for, we do need to deploy the change, which I'm going to talk about, for it to be a stable and reliable service that our customers are expecting. In terms of some of the challenges that we see on a daily basis in our operation and across the sites I've spoken about, we do and we are running at 6% sick at the moment. So that does cause significant operational challenges for the managers that we're facing into, and our frontline people who are working really, really hard. And when you look at the national average of sick absence, obviously we're well above that in terms of the impact it has for us. At the moment, we have got 32 vacancies across the key sites that I mentioned at the start of the update, and we are currently recruiting 73 new people, post people to come into our operation to help us continue to deliver our service and to try and mitigate some of the challenges we've got on a daily basis with other things such as sick absence and attrition. We have seen real success, so we don't have a problem at the moment with attraction. We average across my area 12 to 15 applicants per role. And even as at yesterday, we're being creative in our approach of recruitment now. So whilst I know Hereford isn't what we're discussing today, it's local to the area, we had an open day yesterday. And for example, we had 50 people attend for 10 roles we needed to fill. We managed to successfully fill the roles, and we've now got a wait list of people. So the attraction isn't a problem for us, but we are leaning into the challenge that we have around attrition. So the attrition is broadly running at about 6.5% across my team. That's better than the national average, but we've still got a lot more work to do on that. And one of the myths that I did just want to mention here today is that we are still paying overtime. There's been discussions in the press recently to say that we've stopped paying overtime. I can assure you across Worcestershire, but also all of the Midlands area, we are still paying overtime, and we average between 5.5 hours per post person. So that definitely is something that's still taking place. We endeavour to clear every item every day. But as I said at the start, I do acknowledge that we have seen some impact to service. And where we can't clear every item every day, we apply something that we call a contingency process. And that is the fact that actually we make sure that we deliver our first class letters every day as they come into the operation, along with premium products and parcels within the process. That's if we can't clear every item, which obviously we're aspiring to do, and our teams are working incredibly hard to do that on a daily basis. Where they can't and they apply that process, it would then mean, in worst case scenario, mail is going out every other day. So first class items, premium products, and then if we are in a challenging situation where sick is above where we had anticipated, for example, then obviously we will move to the contingency process in those circumstances. Across Worcestershire, we haven't had any of my sites on service disruption, internally or externally. And what do I mean by that is if we have service disruption to delivery points where 20% of the delivery points in a particular office have gone for 3 days not being delivered or serviced, that would hit a trigger. If it's then 30%, that would go on an external database. And for Midlands at the moment, or for this area specifically in Worcestershire, we haven't got anybody on there, and we haven't had anybody on there for the last 12 months. Again, I do acknowledge we've seen improved performance, but we still have much more to do for our customers. The other point I then touched on earlier, which I would like to come on to now, is around the change that we need to be able to obviously make sure we deliver the service that our customers are paying for. And back in the summer last year, Ofcom agreed to change for us that we've been lobbying for more than 5 years now to make sure we can have a sustainable, but more importantly, a reliable service for our customers. And we are working with CW at the moment, so we're in negotiations, and we've extended the talks to the 30th of this month, where we're hopeful that we can get an agreement to deploy the change. And why is that important? Well, we've piloted across 35 sites a new delivery model with an improved service. And what we've seen is that the quality of service has risen in all of those pilot sites. Now, in the Midlands, the 2 sites I've got are over in the Nottinghamshire area, so they're not in this specific area. But we have seen a 50% reduction in mail not going out. And we've seen addresses delivered to go from 91.9% up to 96.9%. So we've seen real positive improvement. What we desperately need to do now across all of the 1,200 offices we've got nationally and the 99 that I have across Midlands is be able to obviously deploy that USO reform and change for us to really hit the service standards that Ofcom hold us accountable to and our customers rightly expect, and to make sure it's sustainable. One thing I would just like to add to that, if I may, is around the change in customer behaviour, and we do have work to do. And within this partnership, I would welcome any support with this, that the way that people send letters has dramatically changed. So, for example, out of all of the letters we deliver across Worcestershire, 8% of them are first-class items. And as I said, we make sure that those items go out on a daily basis. Second-class items are 15%. The rest of all of our letters are what we call economy mail. And if I can put that into the simple terms, that's a 5-day product. So third parties and customers can choose that service, but it's a 5-day service. So for example, every household averages 4 letters now. But as those letters come to you, if you don't have a first-class item or you don't have a second-class item, the economy mail will land with you on that 5th day in terms of delivery, if it is all economy mail. And I think there's so much work to do to try and re-educate people with this. I know I've been doing it with family and friends myself. If you haven't got a first and a second class letter, the economy mail will come to you when it's due delivery, which is a 5-day product. But that then may mean on a Friday, you get 4 or 5 letters, which are all economy mail, that land on your doormat. And there's a perception that that's been delayed or it's had a backlog. Even on Friday last week, I was in Malvern and a customer came to the office wanting to collect the mail, demanding they must have mail. Actually, I took them to the delivery frame and the delivery point, which I'm not encouraging we do this because we need our managers and frontline people out there delivering the mail, not obviously with queues at the caller's office. But the perception was that there must be something there for them. And the reality was, because of the decline in letters, we hadn't got anything due for them. So anything we can do to work together on that as we move into questions and discussion, then I really, really would welcome it because the profile has changed in terms of letters and as how they come into our network. The final one for me, if I may, just with one eye to the time, is I mentioned around a little bit of background information or things that may be relevant for you here today. We are working at the moment on post boxes for the future and digitalising post boxes and allowing a service where customers can also put parcels via our boxes. We have had some local feedback because they've temporarily been taken out of service that customers were concerned that it meant their post box was going. I just wanted to give reassurance today because we have a number of boxes across Worcestershire where they're going through this process at the moment, and I have that further detail if you wish me to share it separately. But I just want to give reassurance that actually if you can help me within our partnership to our customers and communities, that box is staying. We do put communication on the box to let them know that, but we're still getting people make contact and they're really worried that the box is going to stay out of service. It isn't. We're just simply making a change so that they can also put parcels through that process as well. The other thing, and I should have mentioned this earlier when we were talking about prioritisation, if we can't clear every item every day, as I said, first class letters go along with the other premium items and products. The other thing that we make sure that we deliver on a daily basis is NHS letters. So we do have a way that if local authorities have signed into our barcode service, that we can make sure that the NHS letters go out on a daily basis, because any one missed appointment or delayed letter is one too many, fully acknowledge that. We absolutely make sure we prioritise those letters. However, here comes the ask of the councillors here today. What we're trying to encourage the local authorities to do is to sign up to the barcode service. And again, we can share some more detail on this later if you wish. But anything you can do to help us encourage that participation means we can pull out those items that are NHS letters and prioritise them if we can't clear every item every day. But that's only if people have signed up to the process so that we can make sure the NHS letters are delivered on a daily basis, and we acknowledge just how important that is. And then just ahead of closing messages from me, I wanted to be really clear that we are absolutely committed to improving our service for our customers, for our councillors, for the communities that we serve. We are really, really proud to deliver the USO One Price Goes Anywhere. Although for us to be sustainable in the environment that we're in, it is critically important that we do deploy the change that you heard me speak about earlier. And if you have any concerns that you'd like to escalate, then again, I'd welcome them, and me and my team will take them away and look into them in further detail. And at the same time, I'd like to extend any visits that you'd like to make to any of your local officers. We welcome that. It's really important we can be transparent with you to demonstrate what we're doing on a daily basis to try and give the service that obviously our customers pay for and they deserve. So the team across Worcestershire are working extremely hard. As I say, we're really proud to deliver the USO service, but the reform is what's going to help us make sure that we can deliver a stable and reliable service to our customers. And thank you all for the time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. Within it, quite a lot of detail, which we'll probably come back and focus on during the discussion we're about to have. But just before we get into that discussion, I just want to be clear that we agree the data and the figures, because they'll form the backdrop of our conversation. So I'm just wondering whether you recognise these figures or not. So I'm looking at a parliamentary select committee meeting where Royal Mail, it identifies that Royal Mail will fine £21 million for almost a quarter first-class post arriving late. That was announced by Ofcom. Now, in terms of the wider spectrum of data, the previous year, November 23, £5.6 million penalty charge. December 24, £10.5 million penalty fee. I think it's fair to say, having watched that select committee, it was quite painful to watch some of the exchanges. So my first question to you is, do you recognise those figures so we know what we're talking about?
Yes.
Yes. So thank you. That's really helpful. So we're going to move into questions now. We've got a kind of general agenda, which hopefully you've seen, where we're looking at sort of headings, and under that heading there'll be some questions, but they kind of overlap a bit, so forgive me if it's not quite as straightforward as it might appear. So first of all, we're looking at the service performance and delivery patterns, the extent and the cause of delays, and the variation between urban and rural routes. So my first question is Josh.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for coming today. And I'll just place on record my thanks to the posters across Bromsgrove, specifically for all the work they do. There was a lot of figures in that report which I struggle to take in without having it in front of me. So please excuse me if you have said something that I've missed. But can you confirm, specifically it was around December time, why the post was delayed? You say you can go to the sorting office for stuff, but people in Bromsgrove started to do that, and there were signs being put up to tell them not to do that anymore. And you say that 20%, that it would cause an internal issue with you. Well, I always feel like I can't be the only one. When people from this building are telling me they're sending stuff first class and I don't receive it until after a meeting and it's been sent out 7 days prior, I can't be the only one. So how does that real world experience actually collate to what you're saying, please?
Thank you, Councillor Josh, for the question. At the peak period, we do obviously see workload rise, and we'd planned for that. We're already planning a peak at the moment for this year to make sure that we're prepared as we can be to keep the service delivered for our customers. This year we did see parcels significantly above what we'd planned for and forecasted for. And in some situations that does mean that we need to then make decisions in the interest of health and safety, but also keeping our operation running. And that then sometimes means that if we've got such a backlog of parcels, we have to clear those parcels because we have delivery offices that are designed for when we're a letters business. We're a letters and parcels business, and some of those buildings haven't changed size accordingly. The other thing we've seen is a radical increase in volumetrics, and those size of parcels then create constraints and challenges themselves. So during that time, where obviously we were significantly above what we'd planned for in workload, we do have to then sometimes make those decisions. It doesn't take away if perception and reality is feeling very different. And as I say, service isn't exactly where it should be at the moment. Ofcom hold us to 93% quality of service on a 1C. And at the peak period, we weren't there. What I am pleased to say is we closed the doors Christmas Eve at a 99.1% service in terms of all letters being delivered and from a parcels perspective. So we did deliver, but I acknowledge obviously we still have work to do. And during those times where we are above what we were expecting in terms of workload, it can bring a challenge that when we need to respond to.
So just to confirm, what went wrong then? So was it that was too many parcels being delivered and then you prioritise the parcels over the delivery of letters, and how does that correlate to the fact that you said that if it was first class it will be there by the second day, but that doesn't seem to be the same as the answer you just given because you're prioritising parcels. Thanks.
Councillor Josh, what we did see in...
Just to help everyone, Josh is fine.
Sorry.
No worries.
What we did see following the statement that the Chancellor made at the end of November, what we saw is then a huge increase in parcel volumes. And what that meant is some of our volumes were excessively over forecast, which then did have a real impact in December. And what we do is we do our utmost to make sure that everything goes out every day, but there was a challenge. We accept that was a challenge, and we can only apologise for that. You know, we're doing our absolute utmost now to get our service back to where it needs to be. And USO reform, where we're desperate to do, Ofcom have given us the green light, and we are, in negotiations with our union. USO reform will enable us to be able to deliver that consistency for your residents in Bromsgrove, so that we deliver that first class letter the next day and that second class letter within 3 days. And again, just reiterate what Kate said, we apologise for that disruption in December.
So just to confirm, it was because we had too many parcels and we prioritised parcels over getting the letters out, and that's why the issues we're having with the service.
We had a challenge, there were people buying, that we did have a challenge. And we've got to, if you, and you're more than welcome to visit Bromsgrove. If we don't deliver some of those parcels, there is a health and safety issue, and then nothing gets delivered. And Kate and her operators will tell you, if you don't do that, then the operation sort of grinds to a halt. And that's the challenge, as we go, as Kate said, with volumetrics and the like, people aren't buying CDs anymore or books online. They are buying microwaves and things like that, large items.
Michael, just moving off the topic area just a little bit there. There was a specific question there, and I think the question, Josh, was, so we are prioritising parcels over letters, and yes? That was your question? Yeah. So then the answer is yes or no?
If we can't clear every item every day, we apply a contingency process. That doesn't mean parcels are prioritised over first-class letters. First-class letters and premium products are within that process, as I outlined earlier. So no, I don't agree that's what we're saying.
I don't know if that was the answer, but okay, thanks. Natalie.
Yeah, thank you. And Welcome to our meeting. Thank you for your attendance today. I just want to say a big up to postal workers across the county who are working very hard with a smile on their faces in very difficult circumstances. Thankfully, you've acknowledged that it's clear that there are performance issues, which is a good place to start, isn't it? Just picking up on Josh's point, over what period of time has this deterioration in performance happened? So when did you first notice that things were not as they should be? And my second question for now is, what's the plan to fix it and end the practice of taking our mail for a ride, which is a phrase that I heard for the first time yesterday from a postal worker when people are clearing basically what's in the sorting office to put it into the van so that if there's a spot check, you can say, no, it's all gone out today, but then it comes back at the end of the day. So what is the detail around that contingency process when you don't clear item every day and that mail that's been taken for a ride comes back? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. In terms of the improvement that we need to make, and obviously the performance expectations from here, as I said earlier, we've due an update with the unions at the 30th of this month, and that will then bring us the opportunity, hopefully, to reach an agreement to deploy the USO reform. That will then allow us to release to Ofcom our improvement service plan, and how then over the coming months, over the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to then see improvement. So we do have a really ambitious plan to deploy the change once we reach agreement over a 5 to 6 month period to deploy change to all of the offices that we've got. So the 99 I have and the 1,200 offices nationally. That will allow us to get to the sustainable and reliable service and the new targets that Ofcom set us. In terms of taking mail for a ride, I don't acknowledge all that in terms of the statement. Obviously, if you've been given that feedback, then clearly it's live feedback from somebody, but that's certainly not a practice that we deploy across any of my sites in Worcestershire. We do endeavour to clear every item every day, and if we can't at the moment, whilst we're working in an imperfect situation, then we do apply the contingency as I spoke about earlier. Michael, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, I don't think you answered the question about when did you notice that things were going wrong, basically. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, we've been... the amount of mail that we are sending has reduced from 20 billion items letter-wise to just over 6 billion now. There is a real change in letter volumes. The challenge we have is ensuring that we have an efficient way to deliver the universal service obligation, which is first-class letters the next day and second within 3 days. And therefore, USO reform is key. That is why Ofcom have given us the green light. We are desperately trying to get it over the line with the trades union. And therefore, once we get to that position, service, as Kate mentioned, with the pilot sites in her area, we will be in a position where we are back to where we are. It's a challenge. People are sending fewer letters, more parcels. It's a balancing act of how we deliver that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's still not an answer to the question that I want to know the answer to, which is when? How long has performance been dipping for? When did you notice? Thank you.
Hang on a minute. I want an answer to the question.
If you can give us the Pacific Delivery Office, we can come back to you on that.
I think I can speak for us all when I say it's the whole of Worcestershire, if not the whole of the country. Specifically, I'm in Malvern. I know that I, like Josh, haven't received papers for meetings ahead of the meeting. Christmas cards haven't arrived. People aren't receiving letters to medical appointments. You've talked about a barcode service. I don't know what that is, and it would actually be the NHS and the ICBs you need to talk to about that rather than us as a council. So that's specific examples from me, but I'm a bit disappointed because you've acknowledged there's a problem and now you can't tell us when you noticed that problem occurred. Thank you.
So, give you some thinking time, Kate. Just to go back to the data I shared at the beginning of the meeting. In terms of the background, the underlying trends, 5.6 mil fine November 23, 10.5 December 24, and the most recent one was 20 odd. So the direction of travel in those last 3 years, taken as a snapshot, seems to identify a problem that predates 23, because in the last 3 years, the figure seems to be getting worse and higher. Kate, is there any chance you can give Natalie some kind of sense of timescales?
So we've been lobbying for change, for reform for 5 years now, because we could see what was on the horizon. Letters declining, parcels rising, and we're really, really proud for the terms and conditions we offer to our employees. But we're not on a level playing field with our competitors, and obviously the gig economies that many of them operate in. So we have seen this coming for some time. In terms of specific officers and specific data, I'm happy to take that away and come back to Councillor Natalie with that, if that would be useful. But we have seen this coming. That's why we started lobbying for change 5 years ago. And obviously Ofcom agreed it last summer. The reality is we had hoped we would have already commenced deploying that change and have reached agreement with the unions. And obviously we haven't done that yet, and we desperately need to do that. I was hosting a visit in Malvern myself on Friday, so I'm sorry to hear of the delays you've personally experienced. I am sorry to hear that. It was a visit that actually gave me confidence that they are working to what we expect them to in terms of the standard, which is if every item can't go out every day, they prioritise the premium products first-class letters, which is what I witnessed on Friday, and then an every other day rotation, again, which is what I saw. The other thing I regularly do and my team do is unannounced visits, so that we do audits and we do checks, because, again, in any situation where we're dealing with human behaviours or different challenges, we then need to obviously satisfy ourselves if we are deploying that. And as I say, apologies again for your own experience, Councillor Natalie. I was there on Friday, and again, there's more to do, but they were in a good spot.
Okay, and Chair, maybe it's something that we could take away from this to give you assurance on the WR postcode site. Maybe Kate could take that away and do some more unannounced visits for audits, so that gives you that confidence.
I'm going to not ask the question again. We asked it 3 times to give some sense of timescales here. Maybe that's something you can do following the meeting. And maybe there are some outstanding issues here today that I think we're about to be asked, where I think it's unreasonable to expect you to be able to answer them on the hoof. So in those circumstances, if you could just follow up with an email or a letter, make sure it's got first-class stamp on it, though. I rather like the way you're using people's first names, and I'm going to just carry on doing it. So, Councillor Karen, you indicated.
Thank you, Councillor Tom. Thank you very much, Kate, and the team for coming along this morning. My question is, it's Black Friday deals that I would say is moving your business case. The end of November, beginning of December is the prime time for retail outlets to be doing special offers, and we seem to be shadowing what they do in the States now. So my question to you is, it's okay having a conversation with the unions, but what are you doing to change your business model? Your letter coverage is dropping dramatically, your parcels are increasing, and I picked up quite substantially that around the Christmas time there were issues. Well, that is when every man and his dog, I think it's 94% of the stock in John Lewis is actually reduced under special deals. You're going to get this increase in parcels. I would say it needs to be viewed more as an opportunity than a detriment, if I'm really honest with you. So I'd just like some information. And also, I would like some information on this barcode service, please, because I'm not sure we've signed up to that in Bromsgrove. And I've got to say, just on an up note, we've got a fantastic postie. He lets us know when his van breaks down, which has been twice in the last 10 days. He posts on our WhatsApp, he lets us know, and he's there. And he's also very good at Neighbourhood Watch. Thank you.
That's great to hear. I'm sure he's very proud to be such an integral part of the community. That's really great to hear. Michael, if I can come to you in a moment around the barcode service in a little bit more detail, that would be great. It absolutely is an opportunity now. This year, not only had we planned peak for Black Friday, the week before we had Grey Friday apparently as a new emerging trend, and the demand really, really soared a week earlier than even what we'd planned for, and it is a huge opportunity. What we're trying to do to change and adapt to that is all within our reform. and the change that we want to deploy with CWU. And the reason I say that is we're looking to then change attendance patterns to respond to that change in workload and demand. So generally speaking, on a Monday, Tuesday, there are days that are the quieter days, and then Wednesday through to even Saturday, the increased workload. What we will be able to do when we deploy the change successfully is make sure that we have people in at the right times. The other thing that's really important, when you look at just for a sick absence, for example, of how high we are compared to the average, they will have increased Saturdays off as well to help with well-being, to help with hopefully then the attendance. But most importantly, then we'll have more people available when we've got the increased workload, and hopefully then take some of the pressures away from our people, because they do work incredibly hard, managers and frontline teams, to try and deliver. But at the moment, we are in an imperfect situation because we desperately do need the change that'll help us do that and respond to the changing demands. Michael?
I'm just going, Councillor Karen, would you like to come back?
No, I'm just very pleased to hear that it's been recognised, because if we've over the last 5 years have seen constraints around delivery, that's about 5 years ago we really entered the market for Black Friday, Grey Friday, however you want to label it. And the way our expectations have changed. You're in a very competitive market. And the point is, if parcels are where your future is, then obviously you've got to focus on that delivery and make sure it meets the time deadlines, etc. So I understand, and having listened when colleagues have raised it, I get where your constraints are within your business model. Thank you. Yeah, massive.
I want to come back on the NHS letters, but you're absolutely spot on, you know, and we, as the universal service provider, you don't know what you're getting. You know, because our doors are always open. So when there's a challenge with maybe a competitor, we could then take that mail and those parcels. So it is a challenge, and we did see a real spike, you know, at the back end of November, way above the forecasts that we had been forecasted, which then makes it a challenge all over. But on the NHS list, because I'm conscious that you did raise that, you know, we don't want to be delivering those letters late. We understand that they, you know, are really, really important letters. You know, really important, because they're appointments for all manner of things. You know, and it breaks my heart when I hear stories like that from when members of Parliament contact me, because that's someone's mum, someone's sister, someone's grandmother.
Michael,
you know, but what we're doing on the NHS letters is we've introduced a barcode which health authorities need to take up. And maybe, Councillor, what I can do is send that detail to you, and then you can take that away. Sorry,
I think if you could send it to all members through the chairman, please, that would be fantastic.
I think that's good.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask, I'm conscious Richard wants to speak instead of Seb, but I just want to make some progress for a moment. There are some questions here that, in all honesty, we wouldn't expect you to be able to answer today. So I've got 3 questions, if you could take away and come back to us on some granular detail. First question is, across Worcestershire, are there any hotspots for worst performance? I know you're going to ask that, but let's just, if you, Councillor Josh, if you just give me a chance, because I want to, those are not questions we're going to get an answer to now. Second question is, can residents still collect their post from Wainwright Road with ID? That's the second question. And the third question is, can you clarify which postcodes areas are not receiving regular deliveries? And that's Mel's question. Mel, did you have an area in mind? Or Worcestershire you're talking about, or West Midlands?
Yeah, Chair, thank you. It was obviously, I'm a councillor in Clane, so it's Clane's North Worcester, so it tends to be the WR3 and WR37 areas. Thank you.
That's helpful. So those 3 questions, can we move on from them? Because there's lots of important areas we need to discuss.
Yeah. Maybe one of the questions on Worcester we could answer direct, because...
okay, go for it. Go for it.
Of course, yeah. So thanks for your question. WR3 area falls under myself, so I cover WR1 to 8 plus WR15. We are actually in a really good place on WR3. First class mail clears every day without any question whatsoever. And I check that myself, and so does my line manager. And we've got really strong rotation in the area. We have brought 14 new people into Worcester since Christmas, and I'm recruiting a further 5 at the moment. So we know we've made some real progress in Worcester itself. WR3 postcode, especially Claims, is actually in a really strong place right now. So I can give you some reassurances on that. Okay.
Thank you, Gareth. Mel, since I was asking your question for you, is there anything you'd like to follow up on that specific question? Are you satisfied with the answer?
Yeah, I think I will soon hear back from my residents. It has been one of the major concerns in the area, and I have myself received late posts, so I'm sort of evidence of it. But yeah, I'm happy just to monitor it and see. Thank
So
you.
Richard caught my eye, and then I've got Seb.
You're more than welcome to, if you want to arrange a visit, we're very happy to host you.
So that's something you can pick up at the end of the meeting. I've got Richard, then I'm going to go to Seb.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I've got two questions, but first of all, a very brief comment. I received a lot of complaints over Christmas time and the New Year about mail delivery being delayed. And in each case, in the last 2 weeks, I've asked people to do test deliveries, send themselves a first and a second class letter to tell me how quickly it arrives. Every single case, first class arrived next day, which they were delighted about. Every single case, second class was received within 3 days. So I think from what we're hearing, anecdotally, things are improving from what they were at Christmas. But two specific questions. At the other end of the scale from delivery, there's collection. I'm hearing considerable amount of complaints about letters not being collected from letterboxes. From post boxes, sorry. But it's either once a day, once a week, or sometimes not at all, and people have to make complaints that the post boxes are overflowing before they're collected. Is this the case? What kind of systems do we have in place to ensure that there is not a collection overdue from post boxes? And can we get some assurances that mail delay is not being caused by the lack of collection? My second question is one which obviously affects us as politicians, is the ability in a peak period for postal votes to be distributed and collected. That will obviously could have an impact on the democratic nature, structure, system of the whole country and in local areas and even local by-elections. I'm hearing evidence of a by-election which happened sometime in December, not in Worcestershire, where there was a significant problem of delays in postal ballots being returned and could have affected the outcome of an election. I'm seeking assurances from you that when there is an election on, everything will be pulled out of the hole to make sure that delivery and distribution of postal
Quite a lot
votes
there, Richard, so
can be...
you see if we can remember them all, Kate?
Thank you for the question and thank you for the feedback. I'm absolutely delighted that from the test cases, all of the first class items and second class items reached on time. It's really encouraging. It's the first anyone's raised any feedback to me to say any boxes are overflowing in terms of letters, so any specific detail would be greatly appreciated. On the data that I have across all of the Worcestershire post boxes, the collection service is actually to target to the expectation. So whilst I say we have more to do within the service, I acknowledge that the collection service across this area is actually performing to the standard it should be. So any anomalies to that, please let me know. If we weren't collecting, we also wouldn't have had the success rate on the test letters that you've spoken about. So again, any more specifics though, please welcome that. And then from a postal votes perspective, I have a designated team to make sure we're ready for elections and anything linked to obviously such an important subject. We pride ourselves in making sure we get that right. And obviously the dedicated team help us do that. What I would also say within our contingency process, similar to the first class items, any electoral items are treated in the exact same manner. If we are in that position and it's still an imperfect position and we have to make a decision on the day or we have a spike in sick, those items are absolutely prioritised.
Can I just come back on that, Chair? You raised yesterday, our chairman of IDS and our chief executive gave the assurance to the committee that we are absolutely rolling out all the stops to deliver the elections around the country. And I see, being a prolific follower of councillors and candidates on social media, all over, I'm seeing people showing me their, posting that they've received their polling cards. So it shows, the election's already started, even though we don't even realise it. So I'm confident that we can do that, and I reiterate what our chairman and chief executive said.
Thank you. I'm going to come to Seb in a second. Now, Josh, I wouldn't wish to offend you. The question was, across Worcestershire, are there any hotspots for worse performance? Is there anything you'd like to add to that? So the question has been raised. Is there anything you'd like to add or speak to that?
Yeah, there is, thank you, because there was said that we had some data. You looked over the six biggest performing ones across Worcestershire: Bromsgrove, Pershore, Droitwich, Worcester. So I presume you have that data, so I'm confused why you think that they wouldn't have that data. in front of them. Surely if they're Royal Mail are coming to Worcestershire about performance, they would know which are the worst performing areas and what they were going to do about it.
Yeah, we can
Kate.
answer that. Nigel, shall I bring you in?
Yeah, good morning everyone. So Nigel Morgan, I'm the Operational Performance Leader for OPL South West Midlands. So just to confirm, as Kate said at the start, we've got 73 new recruits going to be coming through into the business in Q1. In particular, you referenced Bromsgrove. They've got 5 new starters. They've already had 2, and they've got 3 more joining in the next couple of weeks. So that specific hotspot that you referenced, Bromsgrove, that will take them up then to the numbers that they're required to make sure that we can provide the level of service and get it back to the standards required.
But we are clearing all first-class items on a
Absolutely.
daily basis and premium products. And in a worst-case situation, then the mail is having a rotation and going out every other day. But we don't have any specific walks or delivery points. Welcome any specific feedback because we can track those as well, if obviously you're hearing something different. But we haven't got any specific hotspots outside and over above that.
Thank you, Kate. Jen, you want to speak, but I'm going to come to, unless it's about this very point, because Seb's been on the waiting list for ages. But then I'll come to you, Jenny.
Fab, thank you. I just want to associate myself with the praise for the postal workers we have. 24 hours ago, I put up a post on my social media that we were meeting today. 11 posties wrote to me. 9 of them said that they do take packages and letters out for a ride with no intention of delivering them, that this is a cultural thing. They've also shared with me a graphic that's shared internally that says that their number one priority is parcels. And that is here, so that answers Councillor McVeigh and Councillor Robinson's point. What I think the public are saying here is they've lost trust that they will post something. I had something come from the House of Commons first class. It took 2.5 weeks to get to me, the only letter of the day. Similarly, the response from Royal Mail head office, dated the 1st of March, got to me on the 15th of March. So realistically, what the culture of posties, they're saying that they're not being told to deliver, that they are pressed and they're understaffed. What reassurance, because they're not just posties, they're also our residents, and I think we have to make sure we're looking after them. So what is being done? Because it's not adding up here. They're reporting that they don't have to deliver, they have to prioritise third-party parcels, because that's where the money is.
Just, Kate, before you come back, just to capture your first point, which is quite a serious one, and I saw people over here getting really surprised by the suggestion that we take postal letters and emails, not emails, and packages out for a ride. Do you recognise that at all? Have you ever heard of that concept before? No, they say they've never heard of it. Kate,
Not very open. Let me just be very clear here. We're very open and transparent. Whenever a member of Parliament or a councillor gets in touch with us, I give you the most up-to-date information. Now, councillor, I can't remember the letter. I would have been me that would wrote to you. We would have wrote to you at Worcester at the town hall, as I believe, but I'd have to check into that. But we don't take anything out of the delivery office. When people come in, they see what they see. We're very, very open. We're very open as a company. Whenever anybody contacts us about, service, I do my best to make sure that we give the best answer. That it might not be the answer you want to hear, but we tell you what you want, the best, the up-to-date information. And we'll always welcome people into our operation, to see what the current state of play is. And we do not, under any circumstances, take mail out to make it look good.
We categorically don't. Productivity and efficiency is critically important for us to then deliver the service that we need to. So what I would welcome, because it's the first time I'm hearing of that, the said graphic and specific detail, I'd like to take that away and investigate, because it's very, very serious. I also apologise for your own personal experience for a delay in first-class item. I am sorry to hear that. I don't want that to be the case. We need to improve that. But if you could share the other detail, I would like to investigate that and then come back, Chair.
this is a two-way street. Absolutely, we can provide that detail if that would help you. Seb, any follow-up?
Yeah, just really quick. I get that, and it does sometimes feel that it's a very political conversation rather than just a very straightforward one. The main point is, posties in my patch and across Worcestershire are not happy. They are getting a message that's clearly different from the message you're saying, and it could be a middle management issue, but we are seeing the effect. for Councillor McVeigh and I, who have two divisions completely the other sides of the county, both having reports of this going for a ride letters, and I'm hearing from colleagues on message now that they're experiencing it is happening. It may not be at the top management level that it's acknowledged, but what are we doing? Because we need to get to the bottom of this, because we've got people who have missed chemotherapy and DWP letters, and that's a fact.
And Chair, if I may just respond just on one final point. I acknowledge and said earlier that service is improving. It isn't where it needs to be. To hit where it needs to be and be sustainable and reliable, we desperately need to deploy USO reform and change. And then for our people, make sure they've got a manageable workload. Really important.
So we are, just for clarity, we're on the second side now, and we're looking at workforce and operational pressures. Next person on my list is Jenny.
Thank you, Councillor Tom. Thank you very much for coming today. I really appreciate being able to ask you some questions. I just want to go back a little bit. When we talk about, it's clear that letterpost is a dying thing. Email is taking over. My employed job, I sell domestic heating, fuel and DERV. And the first thing we ask everybody now when they ring up is, can we have your email address? Because the post simply isn't getting there fast enough. Most domestic customers are on a 7-day account, which means they pay a surcharge if they don't pay within 7 days from delivery. But the problem with this is we still have vulnerable people out there who aren't digitally able to receive emails, mostly elderly customers who are still reliant on the post. And I'm worried that there is going to become a part where the letter post is such a small part of the business, it is no longer viable. And I want reassurance really for those that are vulnerable and still rely on the post, that there is still going to be a service for them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a big discussion. We mentioned the select committee at the start of today. We love letters. We're really proud to deliver the USO. The challenge is, obviously, they are declining. And obviously, we need to make sure that then we can be competitive in the parcels business to then still sustain the USO service. And I acknowledge some customers, vulnerable customers, or for whatever reason, still want that service. What we have done is made sure that we've given that opportunity to customers to have that premium service on a first-class item. And what we want to try and do is protect the cost of the first-class and second-class stamp. But to do that, we've got to make sure the parcel element of the business is viable and sustainable. And hence the reason we desperately need to deploy the change as quickly as possible so that we can do exactly that, which is really important, really, really important. So it is something that we're focused on, and if we can deploy the change, that will then help us bring that stability in to make sure we can still offer it. In the here and now, that premium service, if somebody does need something of that first-class item, there is the option to pay for that product. As I said earlier, most people now, the bulk of our letters are going in an economy product, which to the point there, that's a 5-day service. It's getting very close to the 7-day window you're operating within. But there is that option to select first class. And what we're endeavouring to do is to make sure that then we can continue to increase that quality of service. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Shall I move on to my other parts now? Sorry, yes. I'm interested to know how good the retention of newly employed individuals is compared to a few years back when the contract of employment changed. I'm aware that newer contract terms are significantly less favourable, creating a two-tier feeling within employees. Those that have been there a while with set hour contracts, good rates of overtime and favourable pensions, to new employees with no set hours, expected to drop their home lives to work as and when, essentially being used when it's busy and dropped when it's not. Now, I have a very good friend who's recently been through the process, and she asked repeatedly for an employment contract before she started. It got to 2 days before she was due to leave her previous job before she got that contract, and as feared, it wasn't as good as she was led to believe in the interviewing process, and so luckily was able to stay where she was. But she's also got a brother-in-law in the service who's been there longer, so it was quite clear to see the differences. So, and the other interest, I'm interested in the culture, because I'm also aware that between the newer staff and the old staff, there might be a bit of an unhealthy culture, and also between staff and managers. Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of the experience that obviously your friends had, I'm very, very sorry to hear about that. And again, I would welcome any more detail that I could take away and come back to you on that, please, if I may. It really doesn't sound like a good experience and not one that I want anyone to have. So I will have a look at that. One of the other benefits with deploying the change will bring an opportunity for more full-time hours. So one of the things that we've really recognised across the business, but my team as well, is that we want the opportunity to offer people better contracts. And in the deployment of the change, actually we do need more full-time workers so that it can help bridge that gap that there is there at the moment, obviously between the new entrant terms and conditions, but obviously then our legacy terms and conditions as well. So the change will bring us the opportunity. What we're targeting now is more full-time hours. So when I'm recruiting, we're really trying to focus on the full-time recruitment rather than the part-time, so it's a more attractive contract so we can retain them. Across my overall Midlands area, our attrition rate is around 12%. And nationally it's around 17%. We don't have a specific issue at the moment across Midlands around the new starters within 90 days leaving, but we still do have too higher attrition that we need to lean into. And we are well aware in all of our operations that obviously we have two different terms and conditions, but we do pride ourselves in making sure the culture is a right one. And if actually behaviours are being displayed that we wouldn't accept or expect, then we obviously do deal with that, because that's not fair on anybody. No matter what terms and conditions they're on, they deserve to be treated in the same way. But again, the change, and I feel like you'll think I am a broken record, but we desperately need it because it brings so many benefits for our people, and full-time contracts is another one.
Thank you.
Can I just also 99% of our people are on permanent contracts, and we've reduced since our agreement with since the EP CWU agreement, we've reduced our reliance on agency workforce by 20% since July. So going to Kate's point, we are committed to a full-time permanent contract, and that's something that we're proud of.
Thank you. It's good to hear, and yeah, we welcome the change coming forward. Really, I think that's where we are. There's lessons to be learnt from what's happened in previous years. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Just a question's popped into my head, which is a bit self-indulgent. Have any of you ever done a postal round? Yeah, all of you?
We all have.
Kate, have you done that? Have you?
Yes.
And
I did it during COVID, and I absolutely, I did it by 2 roads at 8 o'clock in the morning before I started my day job, which was highly pressurised because we were trying to keep our people safe and we were working with government. And I absolutely, hold my hat off to these people, because I got to know my neighbours that I never knew. And I'd lived on that street for 15 years, and I didn't know any of them. And I got to know all the little intricacies of who doesn't like people and all of that. And also just some of the challenges that our people face. So, lots of things. So, yeah.
Just in terms of myself, just to bring it in, I started off as a postie 20 years ago. So I did 10 years on delivery, posting every single day. Fantastic job, absolutely loved it. But clearly I had the opportunity to move into management, but it was fantastic, loved it.
We do pride ourselves on, Chair, though, staying close to the challenges our frontline teams face. It is a challenging role. They're out there in all of the elements, generally always with the shorts on, but yes, on average 5 hours out there, walking more than 20,000 steps. It really is labour intense, but also the way that they operate now, because we are delivering so many more parcels, they have so many more things they need to do for a customer experience and journey on their personal device. It's really, really changed the whole way of their own delivery methods. So me and my team do stay close to that. During every peak period, we go on delivery to try and help with that increased workload and to keep delivering for our customers. And I'm absolutely part of that because I do acknowledge how hard it is.
I'm going to bring Richard in a second. That's really interesting, actually, because it's probably one thing we've all got in common here today, is that we've all doorstepped. We've all put our shorts on. Even if it's just Richard, apparently not. But we often follow the postie round, don't we? We find, in fact, illegally. I can remember one occasion he said, "Give that to me, I'll stick it to the door when I'm putting mine through the door." Now, I'm sure he shouldn't have done that. I'm not going to mention any names. But we often walk up and down the same path, literally. Do we not? Do we not? Okay, Richard.
It's following on from these questions, and I've got very quick three-fire questions. First of all, the issues about postal worker safety. I'm aware that there's been an increase in abuse and threats against postal workers in recent times, especially maybe linked to delays. Have you got any data on that, and what actions are you taking to actually address issues about threats and intimidation against postal workers who are out on the rounds delivering our mail? Two, I would like a commentary on industrial relations which are current in the postal industry. What are they like? Are they good, bad or indifferent? And what kind of relationships do you have with the recognised trade unions? And thirdly, I was told that there was no seasonal Christmas recruitment which took place last December. That you chose not to do that this time. Is that the case? Can you bust that myth? And or will you be using seasonal recruitment in the future when you are aware of potential boosts in mail delivery?
Thank you. In terms of the safety of our people, specifically across Worcestershire, we haven't had any of those examples that you call out there. Across Midlands, we have my wider team, and we take it very, very seriously. The safety of our frontline teams clearly is absolutely paramount, but specifically in Worcestershire, we haven't had any. To the second point around relations and our relationship with CWU, speaking across the Midlands and the relationship I have with the divisional reps that I face into, we have very strong working relationships. It feels a very progressive relationship. We're focused on the common ground of obviously wanting to make sure we treat our people fairly and obviously they have a good environment to work in. And I've been in Royal Mail for 8 years now, still classed as a newbie at that stage apparently. But what I would say is I've never had a better working relationship. And what I'm also seeing is that trickle down to such as Nigel, who reports into me, Gareth as one of the frontline team managers as well, one of our lead managers. They've never been better. We just desperately have to get this deal across the line so we can deploy the change together. And in the trial sites, the absolute magic that's helped us do that is the great joint working from the two sites I've got across Nottinghamshire. That's made such a difference because the teams have been working together. So it gives me confidence. And then it is absolutely a myth that we haven't recruited for the peak period. We recruited the additional workforce to the demand that we'd planned for. The reality was the workload then still came in above that, and we're working on investing on technology to try and get that data better on the Fort Worth parcel data. Mr. Daniel Kraczynski spoke about that yesterday at the Select Committee. So we do need to do more, but it is an absolute myth. And again, Chair, I'm happy to share by delivery office the exact increase we had in workers, and we will be doing that again for this peak period.
Chair, I think maybe the councillor also maybe was alluding to where we are with the negotiations. We are still in negotiations with the trade union on USO reform, and we, you know, that announcement or whatever happens would be on Monday. So I wouldn't want to speculate as to where we are on that.
Are you done? Okay. Just finally on the question about workforce and operational pressures, Jen did actually have another question about, just a practical question really, about afternoon shifts. Is there enough charging electric vans for staff coming in at lunchtime? Yes or no?
So it's obviously an operational challenge around vans out in charge, but we have actually just started using a real fantastic system where we can see the charge in every single van just by logging onto one computer screen. So we can now move vans with a large charge to parcel routes in the afternoon and collection routes in the afternoon. So it's a new system we've had for, I'd say, about 3 weeks in most of itself, and we're starting to see some real benefits from that.
Thanks, sorry. Sorry to dot about, but I was trying to get in earlier. But it was about service delivery timeframes. Just a comment and then a question. I'm obviously very old-fashioned because I still write Christmas cards and put a stamp on them. And I'm about to post my Easter cards second class today in the hope that they'll reach there by the Thursday before by the bank holiday. And I'll ask all of you to give a firm commitment that they'll get there. I jest. But and I live in along a country lane, and it's just in terms of the service standards on second class, because And sorry to be very anecdotal and turn it personally, but myself and my neighbours tend to receive our second class post once every sort of 7-ish days. I get a bundle of about 10 letters once, as I say, every 7 or 10 days. I certainly don't get my second class letters within a diligent time period, and I think you said it was 3 days. So are you able to comment on the service standards, particularly for second class stamps, post rather?
Postcode, Councillor.
DY12 1MB, yeah.
So in terms of the data that we have for that area, we haven't got any reported issues around the second class. However, I would happily take that away and come back with some more detail. We're not reporting that is the case, but I'd like to take that away if I may.
I can concur with Councillor Hart actually on there. I'm a DY12 and I'm rurally lived. Actually, since I got elected, my post has increased. I probably was lucky to get it once a week, but now I have these brown envelopes with agendas. My postman obviously realises what it is, and it's improved. Yes, thank you.
I'm sure you didn't mean it in that sense.
And I'm sorry, Chairman, what I also meant to say is I'm obviously very old-fashioned because I suspect I'm one of the few people that still gives my postman a tip at Christmas.
Do they still get tips at Christmas?
They do indeed.
Quite, and the bin men as well. The council bin men are doing an equally good job. So I'm going to come on to the third and final section as soon as you allow me to. Rog, you had a question.
Yes, well, thank you for coming this morning. I have to say I have a superb postman. I have 2 dogs and he brings biscuits every day for the dogs when he delivers. So that's a very welcome sight. You mentioned throughout your talks about trade unions and you hope to get a new agreement. Can I ask you, where are you on the negotiation you have to get this new agreement? And what happens if you don't get this agreement?
I don't think it's, as I mentioned to your colleague, we are in negotiations with the trade union. That's been extended to the 30th of March. I think it would be wrong of us to speculate, and I think we should wait to see how that plays out. Absolutely.
Absolutely clear, but we need to be careful not to fetter those negotiations by any commentary this morning. On my list, I've got Richard, not for the first time, or even the second time.
Well, I'm just a very popular councillor, what can I say? One of the complaints which I received during the Christmas period was people telling me about the delayed mail, that they had no way of making their feelings or concerns known. How do people successfully make complaints to yourselves about non-delivery? They told me that they were hanging on the phone for 50 minutes to an hour, not 45 hours, 45 minutes to an hour, waiting for complaints, and then put the phone down because they couldn't wait any longer. There's no email address for people to write to, probably a good reason for that. You want them to write a letter instead of an email. But there is very specifically, looking at the website myself, very difficult to find how to make a complaint. So going forward, how can that be improved?
So I apologise for that your constituents have waited longer than we would have liked for them to raise a complaint. There are multiple ways that people can raise complaints to us. They can go through our website where there is a web form, and I can send the chair the link. And also they can write to Free Post customer service if they wish to. And then there's the telephone number, which I know has been an issue, but there are other ways that customers can contact us.
Have you managed to resolve the telephone line issue? Is it now no longer 45 minutes to an hour wait, or is it still a problem?
As you can imagine, there will be peaks and troughs of when the phone line would be, people would be contacting us more. But there are other ways that customers can contact us. But let me take that away because I feel like I can't give you the answer that maybe you're looking for at this moment in time.
Remember, was it a free phone number?
0345.
Whatever that
which is a local number.
Local number, right,
would
okay.
That can be used on mobile minutes.
This was one of the single biggest complaints I had about people who couldn't complain, but they couldn't get through to you on that line. So hopefully it's something which you can look at and come back to us about.
Is it worth doing a mystery shopper for one of you, actually, just to test the system?
Let me take that away.
Thank you. Right, I've got a number of people who want to speak. Seb and Josh. I'm going to do it in that order, but I'm going to, in a minute, refer you to the last page. So, in that order then, Seb, then Josh.
Fab, thank you. Just a quick one that I forgot to mention earlier. Residents have quite rightly missed bills or fines or things like that. What is the route for compensation for those residents? I have evidence, but equally I've got reference numbers or evidence that they have emailed into Royal Mail and not had an acknowledgement or a next step. What does happen? So, for example, if you miss a parking fine, it's not delivered within the 14 days of the reduced amount, what do we go back and say to residents? Because quite rightly, they should be getting it, as you've acknowledged, but they're not currently getting it.
So every case, or if there's ever any cases like that, we would investigate on their own merit. And if we're at fault, I've got many, we have examples because we're not to the standard on all cases on the quality of service where then we'll obviously honour that. But we'll go through the complaints process. So please, if we can share them, and then obviously we'll go case by case to investigate and understand really what's happened. We need to learn from that.
Yeah, that's fine. So the example, I won't obviously give the person's name, but the example was very clear that they engaged in your complaint process. The complaint process then said we needed the date it was delivered and the postcode, which I'm sure is absolutely fine. The letter was delivered in a bundle of over 20 letters, as I think we've all agreed that does happen, but he couldn't give the accurate date. Royal Mail said it's within our service delivery standards, goodbye, but evidently the date within the letter on the envelope was more than 2 weeks prior to that delivery date, but the sort of responsibility therefore, according to Royal Mail, didn't then lie with yourselves. But what do residents do? Because that, to me, doesn't lie with the resident because that letter hasn't arrived within the 14 days of a reduced payment.
Why didn't you share that with us, Councillor? But when we do go through the complaints process, if they've gone through the complaints process, then if a customer is not happy, then the next escalation process is the postal review panel, which is the next part of the escalation process. But I think I think it'd be good to look at the specific case than to comment sort of abstractly.
Okay, I'm going to move on to Josh.
Thank you. Just on the back of Councillor Udall's point about the phone calls. So, do you have a time that how long it should you expect to answer the phone in? Because if someone's doing 45 minutes, surely it should flag up straight away that your average time is really high, and then you'd look to move resources in. And then do you have that same scale for when someone complains via email? How long should someone expect to have a response? And then if someone writes in, how long should they expect to have a response? And what are the consequences if you don't reach those things?
Thank you, Councillor, for raising it. Today is the first time it's ever been raised with me, and I do many a meeting with customers and MPs, and it generally is the first time. So thank you for the feedback. I'm going to take it away. I can't answer those specific points at the moment, but rest assured I'll go and find out. And it clearly sounds like, obviously, we've got an opportunity to improve that customer experience. So we will go and find out for you. I can't answer at the moment.
I'm going to go on to the last page. It's Josh again.
Thank you. The question, and it sounds like what the answer is going to be, is that we'll get some reform soon and it will make everything a lot better. But if I went specifically in Bromsgrove to try and push that point a bit more, when we said about the parcels would have been in there and it makes it unsafe, so to me then you're prioritising parcels to get out to make that area safer. What steps are you putting in place to ensure that the issues in December last year don't happen again this year?
So twofold, and you're exactly right. The USO reform is critically important that we deploy that over the next 5 to 6 months, because that will really then help us face into that this peak. Secondly, we've already started planning the peak period now. to make sure that we are ready for that. But the reform and the change is a catalyst that will make sure that obviously then we can have the service standards and the reliability where it needs to be.
Sorry, so if the reforms come in, we should all be fine in December this year and I won't have the same problems again? Or are you still expecting there'll still be problems in December and that's why you're trying to plan for what those problems will be?
Reform will help us improve our quality of service and get to the targets that we've agreed with Ofcom. When we reach agreement and the talks conclude, Alistair Cochrane committed yesterday that he would share an improvement plan to Ofcom around our quality of service. Am I sitting here and saying we're going to be able to click our fingers when we've deployed the change and it's suddenly going to be better? Of course not. I can't make that promise, but I absolutely give the assurances that it'll give us the foundation to go on the journey over January for each office, a 12-week embedding process, for us to then really get the service to where it needs to be. We're then going to do everything that we can to plan for the peak volumes and the increase in volumetrics this peak period and make sure that obviously we get those numbers right and the consumer behaviour tracks in line for what we planned for. This year was challenging because Grey Friday and the uplift came earlier than we ever expected. What we're going to do again is be ready for that this year. We do bring the extra resource in and plan for it, but those coupled together will help us make sure that we can deliver a successful peak period.
Okay, thank you. But as someone who used to work in retail for a number of years, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, stuff are not something that have just happened over the past couple of years. They've been going on for quite a while now. So you can't say that peak happened and that's causing you a problem. In Bromsgrove, we said the problem was that we had too many parcels and that meant it was unsafe. So that's going to happen again this year. So are you looking to make that safe site so you can get more parcels around so you can deliver more letters over the December period, or is it just going to be the same problem again? If you get an influx of loads of parcels, you'll say it's unsafe in there, so we have to prioritise the parcels.
Of course, we're going to plan this year for the continued increase in volumetrics and the continued increase in parcels. We're also looking at how we can optimise our operation so that we've got afternoon deliveries as well. So yes, we'll be facing into those challenges. We won't just sit and deploy the same plan that we did this year because there'll be many moving pieces for us as we move forward. And we'll make sure that we plan for that as we've started doing now to be as effective as we can for the service. But I do come back to deploying the USO reform and change is really, really going to help us do that. It's really important.
I'm going to invite Mel now because she's got a question in relation that refers to what we've been talking about.
Chair,
so I think just back to the timescales for the action plan, I think is what you. So I think Josh was pushing at this as well. Mel, is there anything you'd like to add to that question? If not, I'll read the question out.
No, you can just read
Okay, so the question is, do you have an action plan? Quite clearly, the answer is yes. But the timescales, Josh was trying to get his head around. Can you give us any clarity about, because to some extent it depends on negotiations with the trade unions.
So the next update is on the 30th, as Michael mentioned, in terms of the discussions. And Alistair Cochrane confirmed again at Select Committee yesterday. He's then looking to issue that improvement plan to Ofcom. But the date that we're working to at this moment in time is the 30th.
Okay. Jenny, you've got some questions tabled in this area. Would you like to ask them?
Thank you. I think it's been touched on really. It was just really whether we move the business into more pick-up and drop-off points like the InPost system really, but you were already talking about having post boxes that can take parcels as well. So it's good to hear you're moving forward looking at that, because actually if there is a problem getting hold of your mail or your parcels quickly, the best thing people can do is pick it up themselves. Thank you.
Absolutely, Councillor. And perhaps if I bring Gareth in a moment, we're planning within our business strategy for 2030 that 1 in 4 parcels will go to an out-of-home solution, whether that be a locker or the other options that are going to be available. And it's so important for the convenience for our customers. So it really is a huge part of our strategy to make sure we get right. Gareth, anything to add?
Yeah, I think you've picked up on a really good point there. The out-of-home experience is growing rapidly. And we have a number of parcel boxes throughout Worcester itself that comes under my remit. And you can see the usage of them is growing and growing and growing. So I think it's something that customers want. The company's working really hard to expand that access because people want to collect parcels when they're going home from work, going to work in the morning. I think we'll see quite a big role in that. We're having real success with it as well. So I think you've come to a really good point there and we will see expansion in that.
And also with we purchased half of 50%, 49% of the Collect Plus network. So what they'll be rebranded as Royal Mail shops. And then what that will mean is then from next month, you'll be able to collect some of those items from somewhere even more convenient than maybe going to a delivery office or the post office or even a parcel locker. So it's about making it easier for customers. So we are doing that.
Jenny?
Sorry, yeah, not just easier, but also safer, because parcels that can't be put through somebody's letterbox, if they're safely locked away in a locker, it's much safer than being left on the front doorstep, isn't it? Thank you.
Thank you for the point raised there. I do just want to come back for a second, Chair, if I may. Making sure that we get the right customer experience is super important, and we don't expect any doorstepping experience from the service standards we deliver at Royal Mail. And if there are any cases we should investigate, then I would welcome that. Our posters really do pride themselves in adhering to the standards we set, which is not to doorstep any items at all. But you're absolutely right, safety is really important, so thank you.
Okay. Jenny, you okay for a moment? Going to go back to Josh.
Thank you. On the digital post boxes we've heard about today, and I think we heard that there were signs on them to tell you details about them. The impression I got from the ones in Bromsgrove is there aren't signs on them telling you. We've had people contact us to ask us what was going on with them. They're all just obviously covered in black cling film, looking quite bad. There's ones on Broad Street in Bromsgrove where the black cling film has been completely ripped off, so it looks at an absolute state. I think I've only seen one of them be upgraded to, word you want to use, to the new digital post box. I've looked online to see what the timescale are for the rest of them to be upgraded, and I can't find them. So could you be able to give us a timescale or where that is online, so we could just pinpoint a direct residence to say that one on Broad Street, that one in Aston Fields, blah blah blah, they're going to be done at this date.
Absolutely. Thank you for raising this. I will investigate. We do have a sign. I have a picture that I can share with the Chair that says, apologies that this box is out of service, post box of the future coming soon, and a QR code for further details. However, in that example, I'll take that away and have a look in case obviously the sign's been removed. Thank you for the feedback. Chair, then I also have a list of the boxes for the area and the dates that they're then due to go live. If perhaps I could share that with you, that might be easiest.
Is that just not, can that just not be provided online? Because it's good for us to have it, but as a resident who wants to contact, they shouldn't have to contact their local councillor to find out when it is. They should just be able to go on Royal Mail's website and it says that post box on Broad Street, for example, is going to be done on the 24th of April or whatever date it might be. I don't understand why it seems to be just for the councillors to know.
Absolutely, and I'll take that away to check if we do advertise that so that it's available for customers to see. It's really good feedback, and I'll check if obviously that isn't part of the process. Can we look to do that to improve the communication? But thank you for your help in the meantime.
I think also, just to be clear, it's not the whole 115,000 delivery post boxes that we're upgrading. We're up to 5,000 at the moment, and they're in generally high footfall areas.
And we have 7 across the catchment here. So it's 7.
Feels like they're all in Bromsgrove.
Okay, I'm going to move to Natalie. Then I've got Richard, who will have intervened 5 times this morning. So I'm keeping a record. Natalie.
Thank you. Yeah, continuing the theme on post boxes, really. As I mentioned, I represent an area in Malvern, and so I'll take an opportunity to raise a local issue if I might. If you want some further details, I can give you them afterwards. But a post box has just been removed without any notice to residents. No sign on it, nothing. I don't know if this is because it's being replaced by a what you call a post box of the future, or whether we will get a replacement at all. It's actually outside Poolbrook Pet Supplies, in Malvern. So are we getting something replaced, or if not, why not, and how can we get something, because residents rely on that post box. And I think the member of staff in the shop is completely fed up with trying to answer the questions of why is the post box gone and when are we getting one back. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, for raising that. As I look at the list here of boxes, that's not one I was aware of. So if I could take that before I go away today, and then I will commit to coming back to you.
I was going to ask the same question. That's Richard.
This will probably be my last question. I said probably. You mentioned something at the start of these proceedings about a mail service which I had never heard of before. I think you called it economy mail. What percentage of your mail service does come under economy mail, and who actually uses it and sends through it? I'm assuming this is for business primarily. And I know many small businesses, probably more so small businesses, rely on Royal Mail and deliveries more than the larger businesses. So if they're not aware of it either, how can they access it, and how can they start using this system? Because it's probably something which they would probably want to actually enjoy and use. And we need to make sure, if this is a system which is causing these issues, that the public are aware of it more. So what kind of activity are you making known to your users, your customers, the people who receive the mail, that there is such a thing called economy mail, and it is treated differently to first and second class?
Councillor, what it is in effect bulk mail, so it's not for you or I to use. It is like banks, the local council might use it. It's mail that people think is, it's important mail. Yeah. So I totally get where you're coming from. When somebody sees the 1st of April on a letter, they either expected to receive it on the 2nd or the 4th. 4th, 5th. So there is an education piece, you are right. But also it leads to the point where when you're talking about getting a lot of, 4 or 5 letters at once, the reason for that is because that access mail is not coming through because you're getting fewer and fewer first or second class letters. So that's where where it looks like you're getting a few letters at once.
What is the percentage of economy mail?
48%.
Sorry?
48%.
48%. And if it's the bulk mail, how can a small business actually start to use this as a system rather than putting first and second class stamp on it? How are you marketing the system, and how are you actually making it publicly aware that this is an issue which is actually happening?
If there is a business in your area that wants to look at that, these are huge bulk. These are sending thousands and thousands and thousands of letters. There are other ways that small businesses can access cheaper prices, like through online, through the Royal Mail shop, or through a franking machine. But if there's a business that you think in your area would benefit it, send it through to me, and I can put them into contact with our commercial team.
Okay. Just a little bit more before we can wrap this section up. I'm going to ask Sam if he's got anything he'd like to ask. No. I just wanted to include everybody if possible. Richard Tudge, is there anything you'd like to ask?
Hi, good morning. Thank you for coming in today. I was interested in the reform. You kept on mentioning about once it's fixed, once it's in place, you'll be able to improve the service. I just wondered exactly what that reform was.
It's not Reform UK. That.
So the reform is going to allow us to implement what Ofcom agreed last summer, which in essence would mean priority items, so first class items would continue to be delivered Monday to Saturday, parcels over the 7 days. And then second class items and delivery to be an alternate day. So the first week you'd see that delivery Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The next week then you'd see it on the Tuesday, Thursday. And the second class items would go over the Monday to Friday, but we'll still have a product available that is next day service, because that's what the consumers told us that they wanted to pay for, which will still mean that a first class item can be delivered Monday to Saturday, but the second class items will be then Monday to Friday on a rotation. It'll also bring us an opportunity to then improve our response to the decline in letters and increase in parcels, which we spoke about earlier, but the well-being of our people, so they can have more Saturdays off. We hopefully can then drive that attendance and support them as well. And the feedback's been really encouraging from the sites where we have trialled this at the moment.
Thank you, Richard. I left the most important one to last. Jessica, is there anything you'd like to ask these people this morning? As a member of the public, she has every right to catch the chairman's eye and ask a question. Is there anything at all that's popped into your head that you'd like to ask these people while we've got them here? Okay. Dan, is there anything? No. Okay. So this part of the meeting is about to conclude. I'm looking and looking and looking. Kate, Nigel, Gareth, Michael, I hope that wasn't too painful. Thank you for your very straightforward answers. Thank you for your pledge to come back with the outstanding issues. We've made a list, and it's quite a long list actually, and hopefully you can come back to us with the specifics, which are often divisionally based within our own areas. One question that's popped into WhatsApp while we've been meeting is it possible for councillors, county councillors at least, to have some kind of way into the post office without having to go through the torturous complaint process? Because we kind of hoover up Royal Mail, I've done it again, Royal Mail, forget the post office, we kind of hoover up complaints, you know, because people go to the local person, and that's often the county councillor. Is there any way into your world of Royal Mail without going to the complaints process?
So as Councillor James will know, it's through myself. So, you know, councillors and elected politicians will come through me, and I will do my best to get you the answer for your residents. Sam has that.
A county councillor in 1997. I was the youngest councillor, by the way. Oh, yeah, so Richard was younger. He's aged rather better than I have. Now I'm probably one of the oldest. In those days, I had a box folder for each of the villages I represented. And they were crammed full with handwritten letters and my responses and copied into. And then we went into the world of email. And now it's other social media outlets. And so the world has changed, and it's changed for you too. There was a time when you used to go to the post box, open it up, was a sense of excitement. Someone's written to me, a handwritten envelope. My God, that's a rarity now, isn't it? And you appear, to a large extent, to be delivering junk mail. That's what it looks like in my letterbox. And occasionally a council envelope. Thank you for your attendance. I'm going to ask one more thing of you. In addition to coming back with the information we've been asking for, is that you come back in person at a point that is sensible, where we can look at the data from 25-26, and we can see how you've got on with the unions and see what the new plan looks like. I'm thinking towards the end of this year. October, November, that sort of time, if our officers can make contact with you as they have. But it is a first for us. We tend to mark our own homework here. We tend to be looking at our own services. So this is unusual, but it's important for OSPB to go beyond the surrounds of the council itself. So I really am grateful. You didn't have to come today.
Chair, can I just also interrupt you? I think rather than coming here, I think it would be useful for you maybe to visit one of the largest sites, maybe to Worcester. I know it wouldn't necessarily be where everyone's ward, but it is a large site. It will give you an insight into what is going on, how we deliver the mail, and enable us to then have that meeting on site, and then you would see how the mail it comes into the operation and how it's delivered.
Have a visit, and then if you could help us host a meeting there on the back of that visit. Should we hold them to that? Yeah? Yeah, Jenny?
Thank you. That sounds really good, but actually county councillors extend beyond us, and I think it would be useful within each district to be able to invite councillors to their local sorting office, actually. Thank you.
We do those on separate occasions for sure.
Yeah.
We very happy to host.
Yeah, as I say that we're just a small section of the county councillors, and obviously the other county councillors will also get questions from their members, so it would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so let's just nail that point, Jenny, so we're all clear. The email contact should be available to all 57 councillors. That we've agreed. We've agreed that we will be guests, your guests, at a meeting towards the end of the year where you can show us what's going on in one of the sorting office areas, and then you will help us host a meeting.
Would that be would it be a full?
No, it would be an OSPB meeting just this morning, so 13, 14 of us, possibly less.
Could we do it where this is maybe a standalone visit and meeting?
Yes.
Could we do it that way and then not the rest of your meeting? Is that possible? It's like a site visit.
So that's kind of fine detail. We'll let officers negotiate with you, but we're talking about the principle. Nick.
Thank you, Chair. Could you extend that invitation to the Cabinet as well, please?
So I'll ask officers to think about that. The truth is, Nick, any member of the council can attend these meetings. Okay, so I did send out a reminder yesterday. So it's normal practice for any member of the council. So we don't need to make a special request invitation to anybody in particular.
I was referring to the site visit, Chair, as well.
Ditto, I think. And we'll liaise with that.
Let me liaise with Michael.
So Michael and Sam are going to liaise about that fine detail, but I think in broad terms we accept that, Nat?
Yeah, just that I think it's been really helpful to have this conversation in public, so we're webcast, so that the public can actually watch this back or watch it live, and actually they do that, so that they're fully up to speed with the conversation and what they can expect, in terms of standards and improvements. So I wouldn't want to rule that out as an option. I think we should continue the conversation in this format so that we can actually live stream. Thanks.
We'll think about the pros and cons of that. By all means. That's it. Enjoy the rest of your day. And we're going to see you again, I think, towards the end of the year, in one format or another. Good luck with your negotiations. Good luck with your new plan. Thank you for being so honest and open with us today. Kate, if you said it once, you said 1,000 times. I apologise. Or worse to that effect. So, absolutely, that's very welcome. So thank you.
Chair, if I may, thank you to you and all of the councillors and everybody here today for your candid questions, and obviously it's a really, really important subject, but we really appreciate the partnership and us being able to continue to work together. So thank you, everyone.
Give everyone a 5-minute recess before we get back together again. It's still good morning. I was about to say good afternoon, but it's not afternoon yet. So we're looking at the Scrutiny Chairs and Lead Member updates, Work Programme and Cabinet Forward Plan. So I'm going to invite each of the panel chairs or vice chairs to give us a report if they've met since we last assembled ourselves. So no particular order. Adult Care and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Panel. Mel, did you meet Jenny and Mel?
Yeah, yes, we did, 9th of March.
Can you tell us what you did?
Yeah, we looked at the delivery of the adult safeguarding model, and there we considered various things, such as making the term safeguarding more understandable to people when they need help with signposting, so using less jargon, and to also providing a telephone number for residents to use to make complaints, because the online service doesn't suit everyone. And we also looked at redistributing safeguarding leaflets and information via staff and to share with residents and community partners better, and also further promotion around the safeguarding award events which we have each year. Further to that, we've also asked that the panel be updated at a future meeting about how adult safeguarding reporting systems are working in terms of providing communication and feedback to residents. And the last outcome from that was a letter is being drafted to the CMR for Adult Care and Wellbeing to express concern about the loss of the CALM coordinator role and request that the situation is monitored to ensure the effectiveness of the mechanisms which are put in place to review this role. In addition to that, we looked at performance and budget monitoring. We've looked to see if a particular KPI can be more realistic, which is DAS 444. And we've requested a future report about the impact of changes to a client's placement provision in care, residential be supported. Then just finally with the budget, we've asked for information on base rates charged by the council for care, excluding one-to-one, see how comparable it is to other local authorities. And also to check whether the Directorate improvement plans can be provided to Scrutiny, as we think that would be a useful way forward. Also, we refreshed the Scrutiny programme, and one of the key things, again, is the CQC. But I'll stop there. Any questions, or if Jenny would like to add anything.
Anything you'd like to add? Any questions to Mel or Jen? It's a really busy meeting you had. There's an awful lot of work going on in Scrutiny, under the umbrella of Scrutiny, isn't there? And long may that continue. Next one's Children and Families, Natalie and Richard.
Yep, thank you. We held our usual EPIC meeting just last Friday, and the main item for the meeting was the dedicated schools grant Heine's deficit management plan. We always have so many catchy titles. We actually requested that we discuss that before we knew that the government was offering to write off up to 90% of the DSG deficit, and it was in response really to the Grant Thornton recommendation. So we pulled it in, and it was timely because we'd had the letter from government from Bridget Phillipson and Wes Streeting on the 9th of March, which gave us information in more detail about the plans to write off 90% of the DSG. I had been under the impression it was up to 90%, so it was really good to seek clarification that actually it would be the full 90%, and that potentially there will be 2 further years of financial support from government to help us with the DSG, because we know it's such a big financial pinch point for us. So basically we're being required to draw up a local send reform plan, and we won't be doing that on our own. It will be done in partnership with the local send area partnership, and that must be underpinned by a local partnership maturity assessment and submitted in June. So we heard about 3 different elements in the plan. So firstly, actions being implemented within the existing resource and policy. Secondly, actions requiring additional resource but deliverable with an existing policy. And actions requiring further policy decisions and potentially additional resource. So 3 quite discrete areas there. That kind of project plan was detailed A to Y, so you can see that I was quite upset by there not being a letter Z, but only I was bothered by that because I'd gone to the lengths of putting it A to Y. There are elements in the plan that will align already with emerging government priorities, such as working collaboratively, early intervention, workforce development and early years focus. And if we receive approval from government, then we should receive funding this autumn, so quite quickly. But if we're not quite right with our first submission, we have a second go, and if that is right, we receive the funding in spring next year. That was the main business of the meeting, really. We then also had the performance and in-year budget monitoring, which didn't really throw up any surprises to us as a committee. And in relation to the work plan, we'll be revisiting and revising it in time for the next OSPB meeting. Yeah, I think that's about it. Richard, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, Natalie.
Richard, while we've got you, I mean, first of all, I watched that meeting online, and I was very impressed with the meeting. What's your take in terms of how this council is going to resolve the budget pressures within this area? What's your take on that? Because that's the elephant in the room, isn't it?
Yeah. So, first of all, you telling me that is like my parents telling me they're coming to watch me play sport or something like that. So it's quite on my best behaviour. But thank you for the feedback. We're completely reliant on this 90% writing off of the high needs deficit at the moment. I haven't seen details of the plan, and we won't actually get an opportunity to see it before it's submitted in June, because the timescales are too short and officers are obviously under a lot of pressure to pull it together with partners. But that's our only way out of the situation, really, because we're looking at hundreds of millions of pounds worth of debt. Obviously, the Send white paper will feed into things as we go along, but really we're relying on the 90% from government.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Let's hope the government delivers. Richard, could you have a word with them? They'll listen to Richard, won't they? Because he's a long-established councillor. Corporate and Communities Overview and Scrutiny, Seb and Sam.
Hello, main theme of our latest meeting, which I want to say was on Monday of this week. Yep, they've all blurred into one. Was artificial intelligence. I think it was a really robust conversation. I think there are actions that have come out of it that we're not necessarily working as quickly as some members would like in our AI approach, that we've still got gaps in things like EHCPs, where perhaps we could be utilising AI to really sort of respond to auditors' recommendations. Maybe it's something Councillor McVeigh and I could do as a collaborative approach. But on the whole, it was very, very positive. We do perhaps have a different level of understanding of what AI is across elected members. Perhaps, I'm very lucky that my vice chair is very much on top of the technological world, so it was very helpful. We have asked, and I'm looking at Sam, that because we put her in a slightly challenging position, we've asked for an extraordinary corporate and communities meeting to discuss the member portal, because we're experiencing, I think a lot of members are experiencing challenges with when they've logged something on the portal, getting a response, things seem to be being closed, there's some accountability issues, and I think we wanted that at quite an urgent meet. It's been on the agenda for quite a while and keeps being kicked back to the next meeting, that I think we'd reached quite a stalemate, especially with highways liaison officers moving, their responsibilities changing. Other than that, I think it was a really positive discussion. We are forecast a greater underspend than we initially thought in our area. So, we celebrate the officers that helped achieve that, but we do need to get on top of this member portal, because as elected members, it's our responsibility to look like we are acting in the best interest of our residents, but we can't always do that when we're not getting responses through the usual channels. So unless Sam has anything that I've managed to miss.
I think the officers have a general understanding and where they want to go with AI, but I don't think we're going fast enough or deep enough. They're kind of using AI a little bit like Google, in my opinion, whereas we could be using it for automation, looking at documents and basically putting plans in place to help the residents.
Any questions to Seb or Sam? Yes, Josh?
Sorry, Seb's mentioned the portal, so it's ring back. As someone who's got, I think, over 50 things outstanding on the portal, I really welcome the thought of having a discussion on the portal, but also on AI. What I saw on our intranet was that we're looking to use AI on our phone for the phone when people are calling in, and it says it's reliant on the data being accurate, obviously within the county. But I know of examples where questions have been asked that are on our website that are inaccurate, the answers. So I'd be really worried that if a resident starts calling up and goes, for example, why did the poplar tree on Stratford Road get cut down? The answer they'd get is not 100% accurate if it goes on the answers they're on. And I've reported that a couple of times, but it's still on there. So I'll just have some concerns about that.
Yeah, I think if I can, because that was raised, and I think as well in terms of accuracy, I mean, an obvious one that we point out is Councillor Hart, as much as he's a great colleague, is still registered as the cabinet member on emails. So our internal system isn't up to date. I think we acknowledged that. But in terms of the member, he may be the future. Who knows? They're changing all the time. So yeah, we have acknowledged that. I think in terms of the member portal, we experienced that people like Karen had, I think, 80 odd live reports that had just been closed without resolution. She did talk about your examples, and sort of Bromsgrove as a whole seems to be having some tricky things with the member portal. I've had some that are 10 months outstanding that have had no acknowledgement at all. So I think that's why we sort of pushed for this urgent one. In terms of AI, I think Sam and I are both keen to push back perhaps at officers and make sure that we are going faster and being a bit bold and ambitious. I agree, they weren't necessarily pushing forward on that.
Moving on to Marcus. Dave Edmonds is not here this morning. Economy Overview and Scrutiny Panel. Marcus,
thank you very much indeed, Chairman. We met a couple of weeks ago on Friday the 13th of March, and we had two substantive items on the agenda in addition to the usual performance and in-year budget monitoring. The first of those two items was the Worcestershire Growth Hub, and had quite a discussion on this. And of course, the county predominantly funds this, but also the 6 districts importantly have played their part with UK Shared Prosperity funding to contribute to it, which of course the government is ceasing to provide as of the 31st of March this year. And I think from what I could gather, and I know that Wyre Forest District Council's contribution was 70,000 a year, it would appear that all 6 districts were paying the same, and it's very helpful to get pretty much a clear view from God, his name's gone. Our assistant Gary Woodman. His name momentarily went. From our assistant director Gary Woodman, that there was commitment from the districts to contribute that. So it clearly showed the value that sort of districts on a local level for a pro-business economic regeneration valued the work that the growth hubs did, particularly for small and medium-sized businesses. So quite a discussion in respect of that, and really I think most districts were committing to fund that for this current financial year 26-27 and 27-28 until we cease to be in. And of course there's a lot of uncertainty and lack of clarity as to how we're going to get funding for regeneration projects in the absence of a strategic authority and indeed a mayor, because of course funding and powers are being cascaded down to them, and it certainly seems to the economy panel that there will be a vacuum there. So I had quite a discussion on the growth hub, and the other second substantive item, which I note did make some of the local media, was on the Worcester 6 Business Park. obviously just a few miles up the road, just off Junction 6 in Worcester. I know as chairman, I did make some positive comments about this because I'm sitting in the cabinet back in 2011 when this project came into being, and of course a strategic release of greenbelt land there right next to the motorway to encourage companies to have a strategic location. In fact, as I drove past it today, looking at some of the big companies that are there, and I think one of the key things was the aspiration at the time to create the 5,000 plus jobs, and now we're at circa 800 to 1,000. And I think one of the challenges to try and be more accurate on actual job sort of not creation necessarily, because they may be transferring into the air, but the job sort of evaluating how many you're actually going to be able to get. But I still think that project, and the committee was supportive of the scrutiny panel was supportive of that project, and thought that it had been success and demonstrated, you know, the county council doing its bit. It's not a landowner, it's not a property or commercial developer, and that was sort of multi-agency between Stofords, the developer, and Spechley Estates, the landowner, and time and investment from the county council. So we had a good discussion on Worcester 6 as well, Chairman.
Questions? Yep, Roger.
Yes, Marcus. You mentioned that the forecast was 5,000 jobs, and we've achieved 800 to 1,000. Has the model changed, or has the take-up not been right, or?
I think it's down to the businesses going into those buildings, because as opposed to like a manufacturer that's got hundreds of jobs in a factory, a lot of it is warehousing and distribution. For example, a company based in Kidderminster, the Tompkinson's Carpets, it's Alliance Distribution. It's largely become a warehousing and storage site for carpets and distribution. So as opposed to hundreds of people producing widgets there, it's a different type of business. But there are other, forgive me the name, Ionis, one of the leading companies, and there are lots of other high-profile companies there. But it was the type of jobs and the type of businesses that went in, I think, that has reduced the number of actual jobs.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit like the Redditch Gateway site, where I think was promised something like 2,000 jobs, I think, and obviously Amazon are on the site now, and it's the same sort of scenario. I think we've got to be more careful when we push things through, that we try and get it a little bit more accurate.
I think ultimately, sorry, Chairman, it depends on the market, because ultimately, if the companies that are going to take it up, but you know, looking at the positives, you know, there's huge business rates income and huge business rates buoyancy as a result of it.
Richard, I'm keeping a tally. This is your 6th.
You don't need to count, because whatever I contribute is always going to be worthwhile.
I'm sure we're going to get to double figures before you finish.
Yeah, well, okay. A question to the Chair about potential skill shortages in Worcestershire. I'm currently aware of the SWDP, which is going to go through the process for approval, which will have thousands of new house buildings across the south of Worcestershire, but we don't necessarily have the skills and the workforces available to actually do the construction work. I'm not sure if that's something which a panel can look at and investigate, but the skill shortages in Worcestershire are becoming a problem for housing developers who are unable to actually perform their ability to construct.
Yeah, I've just looked at the work programme for the economy panel, and the next meeting we will be looking at youth employment support and apprenticeships.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just building on that, North Worcestershire College, as a consequence of that, recognised the gaps that we have in the construction industry and have opened up a whole new set of courses around that, and have an on-site section that you can learn how to actually lay bricks, to be a plumber, to be an electrician, etc. So that as via the Worcestershire Local Enterprise Partnership. So it was about getting ahead of the curve. And my feedback from that, from the principal of North Worcestershire College, is it's going really, really well. and the uptake is very, very good. So maybe as a consideration, they should come along to have that conversation. But recognising that the Worcestershire Local Enterprise Partnership has taken some action, and really welcome the fact that the growth hubs are being invested in by all of the district councils. And also Beta Den is another good piece of work that's come as a consequence of the Worcestershire Local Enterprise Partnership, and the Angels scheme about the incubation of ideas and growing those businesses, because it feeds in with your not in education or employment, but it is about the wider economy and how we invest in it. So absolutely lots of work's going on there. And as a member of I'm a sub actually on the Worcestershire Local Enterprise Partnership Board, but pleased to say I've attended every single meeting. Thank you very much.
That's all very interesting. Just Marcus, the issue about Wychhaven Town concerned me a little bit the other day with the government announcement that it wouldn't be prioritising this site, though it's in the SWDP. I guess I'd want some reassurance. Now, we've had a letter from Paul. I'm not certain that in itself gives me all the comfort I'm looking for, because I don't know how the funding envelope works for that development and how much it's developer funded, whether there's an element there that would require national government funding in terms of the infrastructure. It may be something, Marcus, you might want to think about at some point, including to drill into that and say, is it actually viable without government funding? Yeah, Karen?
You've raised a really pertinent point, because as part of the Wychhaven Town, Parkway Town, we were to have 6 primary schools and 2 high schools that I'm aware of. And my question through the children's panel would be, what impact will that have on education if those school sites aren't coming forward?
I think what's sounded... Sorry, did you want to... No.
I was just gonna say around Wychhaven Town. Oh, I wish it wasn't called Wychhaven Town, but it's not my favourite. But as far as I'm aware, it's a Homes England site. So I've been assured that there will be no problems with delivery. But I do take on board the point around infrastructure, especially schools, medical, and that type of issue. So by all means, we'll look at it at Children's when we get a chance to. Thanks.
Yeah. So just it sounds like there's a few issues cross-thinking. I was going to come on to this afterwards, is whether there is any issue across the county with delivering some of this stuff. So it might be so that Children's might look at it, it might be another panel might look at it, Environment might have to have a look at it, whether this board is something that might want to have a look at it, just to make sure, because, we keep saying we've got no money. I would really have concern if suddenly we're going to have to foot up a bill for anything, even if it's in the short term, or whether OSPB wants to look at it.
Thank you, Chairman. As the only Wychhaven District Councillor in the room, I thought I'd just address the concerns. Wychhaven Town, we are categorically certain is still fully viable. Wychhaven is still fully committed to delivering it, and as was alluded to by Natalie, it's still a Homes England scheme. We're receiving far more support from Homes England than we were expecting the government to have considered giving us, and they have been very clear that some support will still be available. But even before their intervention, we were confident that we had the funds through developer contributions and Home England to deliver the, especially schools, transport, healthcare provision that was needed alongside. So it's still full steam ahead, even without that government support.
I'm pleased to hear that, but it begs the question, the 6 or so that have got the government support will have all those things that you've got, Dan, plus direct government investment too. And I'm not quite sure why this town in Worcestershire is no longer on the list.
It's still on the list, and it may well actually come in the future years, months ahead. But the first phase is the ones which were announced yesterday, and Wychhaven is still potentially going to get the funding and support it needs later on down the line.
I feel like after sitting in these meetings saying how great I have with full attendance and vacancies, I knew this point was coming at one point. Due to political changes, we now have a vacancy from the reform group on our committee. I was really grateful that Karen was substituting in on Environment Committee. We did have 2 further absences from reform with no substitutes, which led us to, near the end of the meeting, only having 4 members present, and the conversation about being quorate was starting to be had. So there is a concern there, and it's all been changed, obviously, since I last had this environment meeting, because the Cabinet member for Highways has now changed. I have already reached out to Councillor Price, who is the interim, I presume, now. I don't know how long that will last for, to try and build that relationship up. But on the meeting, we had 3 things on the agenda. One that Councillor Udall pushed at last OSPB on the pre-decision scrutiny on biodiversity duty. We had a good conversation about that. We were rather content with what was said. The other 2, though, were a bit bigger on the Environment Act on waste disposal. I think there's a lot of work still to be done there between county and districts prior to local government reorganisation about what is going to go on between the 2 authorities on that. And then we did a bit of scrutiny on the speed limit policy that happened earlier on this year from the old, now Cabinet member. So to say there was a lot of lively discussion on that point and disagreement with it, but there were some points put to the Cabinet member to take away, but now we'll have to talk to the new Cabinet member to see if they're content with what was said. Other than that, productive meeting. Thanks to officers for getting that agenda item in such a short time, but I do worry that the committee, with only having 4 people on it at one point, we had to change the agenda around because I had an interest, so I had to leave the room. If I had left the room, it would be down to 3. And it took one person to go to the toilet, and the meeting would have had to stop. So.
Okay, just Sarah, we'll bring you in a second, I promise. So in terms of attendance, it does seem overall to have got better in this cycle. I'll be honest, overall. Clearly it's not the case in your panel, Josh. So I will write to all group leaders. I'm not going to single any group out. Just to say, you know, we've got substitutes in now. There should be no excuse for not populating all the positions. And I'll write to all group leaders on that basis. If that might help you, I don't know. The other issue, Josh, before you respond, is my conversations with the new Cabinet member for Highways, early days, but my inclination is he's far more amenable to responding to community, parish and town councils on speed limits than perhaps this council has been in the past. That is the messaging I'm getting in these first 12 hours, if you like. So you might want to invite Nick to a future meeting, because I think that you'll find that he, as the Cabinet member, is someone who would be more amenable to requests for a lower speed limit in some circumstances. So I would encourage you to reach out and see what can be done. I think there's an opportunity there if you grab it.
As I've already said at the beginning, I've already reached out to Councillor Price to talk to him. He is interim Cabinet member for Highways. Whether we don't know how long that interim will last for. The policy has been set. I haven't had no inclination from anybody that the policy on speed limits is changing. So that's news to me that you're saying that they seem more amenable to changing, because that is not being said, and no one's brought forward that there's going to be a policy change here. So I'd say news to me, but he has been invited to future committees, and he said he would attend, but, you know, come May, I might not be chair and he might not be Cabinet member, so.
You have to work, Josh, with what the situation is rather than what you think it might be in the future. So I'm pleased that you're reaching out to him, and that conversation may include speed limits. I've just spoken to him this morning. So grab the opportunity before it disappears, is what I would say. A few people wanted to speak. Seb, then Mel.
So yeah, I I scrolled through my notes whilst you were talking. I think last time we met, you had written or in the process of writing to the leader about vacancies. I still have one. We've obviously had the question raised at full council. What is going forward? Just because we've had really great conversation, I'm not necessarily picking on a group. The conversation is really good and robust and authentic, but that vacancy could be filled by someone who also is really interested in what we're talking about. Is there any way we can have some sort of direction? When do we have a deadline to just get a vacancy filled? Or can we open it up to other groups, even on a rolling basis,
No,
put
we
it
can't.
out?
So the proportionality rules means that we can't populate it with people from another group. So that's a dead in the water one, Seb, though it's clearly useful.
I don't think it's dead in the water, though. Sorry, Chair. There are requirements put in. So political balance exists, yeah. But if a motion got put to full council to suspend political balance and no one objected to it, then vacancies can be filled.
That is technically correct, but in my experience, very unusual. I've said this morning that I will get a letter out to all group leaders saying that we've seen some progress, but it's not universal, and there is the substitute process, so there really shouldn't be anyone not attending, other than the church reps and things. Have I done them all? Mel, sorry, Mel.
Yeah, sorry, and I think it's more for the environment. Just point of clarity, I think I may have misunderstood, but I was under the impression that with where there were requests to reduce the speed limit on certain roads, that was something that the council would not be doing going forwards. But I don't know whether that's
So that is correct. The review of the speed limits said pretty much no change. But now there's a new cabinet member. And that, I think that would be warmly welcomed by every single member of this council to be less sort of policy-led and more pragmatic. So I think there's an opportunity there. The truth is, there's no national criteria that says you must this and you can't this. Local highway authorities have the discretionary power to have their own policies. And I was disappointed with the no change review because I didn't think it reflected what the people are asking us to do. I don't think we're asking for a 20-mile-an-hour limit in Wales, like every village. We're not asking for that. But we are asking for something that rebalances the right of the motorists to get from A to B reasonably quickly with the rights of communities to live in safe and secure environments. That balancing act between king car, king motorist, and local residents is something I think we need to go back to. And I think there's an opportunity to do so with a new cabinet member, even if he is interim. Josh, I think I've made my point. It's down to you, mate.
So just to clarify, first of all, I completely forgot that I was meant to, in my little speech, was thank Councillor Perks for his attendance and answering the questions for the past nearly year. To be fair, the policy doesn't quite say that no reduction in speed limit will happen, but it does have a lot of caveats involved. So for accuracy, it's not accurate to say that if a speed limit was requested to be reduced, that it's a downright no straight away, but it's quite difficult to.
Okay, it's not 100%, but it's 99%, isn't it? Right, so I'm going to move on to health and scrutiny, and Karen.
Thank you very much. Before I start, just to let everybody know, I went to the Local Government Association Health and Wellbeing meeting in Birmingham, and it was around the delivery of adult social care. I was the one person there from Worcestershire. We were looking at all aspects of adult social care, be the funding that will be required going forward, potentially. But this feeds straight into the Baroness Casey report that she's doing, which should be coming forward in 2028. So I think it's important that we do engage in all of these events to make sure that we get the best outcomes for our older population. And also, I have to remind everybody, around 75% of the budget goes on 2.5% of the population. So it really was a good day up in Birmingham at the Town Hall. Moving back to health overview and scrutiny, we met on Wednesday the 4th of March. We are currently carrying 3 vacancies and have been since last May. I won't say any more about that, but the 2 subject matters were access to GP appointments and an update on access to NHS primary care dental services. Overall, the quality of primary care services across Herefordshire and Worcestershire is high, with strong levels of activity and generally positive patient experience. However, access remains challenging for some patients, and variations between practices continues to require focused attention. Basically, we want continuity on practice and access, and we made that very clear, and I think Mrs Morris would agree with me. She sat in that meeting. It was a very robust conversation. I think health is very much at front and centre of people's outlook in life, and they want access to the health professionals when they require it, and it really is very, very important. And I think the other point is that GPs are private-run businesses. They're not actually part of the health economy, and so that's something that some residents miss. So it can in some instances be a challenge. But really, I was grateful for all of the input from our colleagues across the whole of the health spectrum, and also the Health and Wellbeing, the Hereford and Worcestershire Integrated Care Board were present at the meeting to feed in, because they do have a responsibility within the ICB for our primary care network. Moving on to dental accessibility as well. That also covered out of hours. Areas like Bromsgrove have no out-of-hours GP access, and that's something that myself and the Vice Chairman, Councillor Kumar, have been pushing for, and we want consistency on practice regarding that as well. If you say to a resident in Bromsgrove, you've got to get across to the Alexandra Hospital, it is about a £22 bill if you're in a taxi, and the bus service doesn't actually operate that effectively to cover that conurbation. So it is a piece of work that we will continue to push on, because we feel that there should be consistency on practice. Moving on to dental access, the Hereford and Worcester Integrated Care Board has worked relentlessly with contractors and system partners to improve access to our NHS dentistry. We're pleased to report that there has been an improvement in the access and delivery of activity, and that's been significant over the last couple of years. We recognise that NHS dentistry really, probably, if we're honest, needs a revision of contracts, but dentistry, particularly for young people, has to be upper and foremost, and preventative action that can be taken in the home with brushing of teeth. We know that schools are rolling out a programme of how to brush teeth with young people is really, really important, and getting into that practice to carry it out continually will always be the message that we want. We will be monitoring this and bringing it back, because we feel that access to dentistry has been a challenge. It is improving, but it's not where we want to get. We want to be at this moment in time. So we're watching this very, very closely, and we'll continue to do so. I'm happy to take any questions, and thanks to the panel that do sit. We might be a smaller than envisaged group, but everybody participates, and I feel that we come away from the meeting with actions, and I have to thank the Democratic team as well for the actions, the follow-up actions that they take. In addition to that, we've just had the appointment of the new ICB chair. Frances Martin was appointed. She will commence the job on the 1st of April.
This has just gone out.
It was Russell Hardy before, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Russell Hardy for all he did in his role too. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Karen. The messaging about non-attendance is, I'm taking it on board. But I'm going to write to all leaders rather than just one, because I think that whilst everyone would argue it's one or there or whoever, I think there's a message to everybody. We put substitutes in last May for a good reason, so that we can make sure all these panels are populated. It's not brilliant to have a substitute in, because they haven't really got the knowledge base that we all build up, which is really helpful. But it's better than not having anyone there. Richard?
I'll be honest though, I went to environmental panel and I really enjoyed it. And I thought, well, if somebody comes forward and says from our group I can't do it, I'll step in where I can, if diary permitting.
Absolutely. But we might just talk about the Environment Committee and Economy in a moment. Richard?
I've been made aware of quite a shocking statistic only a couple of weeks ago, that rates of leukemia and lymphoma in Worcester has risen by 62% since 2021. But funding for it, excluding pay, has risen by only 31%. So there's an underfunding of quite a significant increase of problems. I do wonder whether this is something which HOS can look at, because clearly leukemia and lymphomas are a killer, and primarily the people who are in most poverty are more likely to die than those who are not. 80% increase if you live in poverty of a fatality from these diseases. So I do wonder whether we can actually consider that at HOSC as an issue to have closer examination about, because it is of a serious concern to those of us who've lost people from these terrific illnesses.
Yeah, absolutely a massive concern. That is, I've not seen that data myself, Councillor Udall. You sit on the HOSC as a representative of Worcester City. I'd be very delighted to take a look at this. It may be that the detection rates are increasing. You know, there for the grace of God, we want detection early so we can get preventative medication, etc. But yes, I think it would be a subject matter that we should look into.
I'll send you the data.
Thank you very much indeed.
I don't know if this... let's complete the circle first of all. Richard.
Yeah, very briefly, Chair. We had our meeting for crime and disorder in December. There was one item which I've looked back on the minutes about, which we do need to look at more detail about, which is the youth service and its impact on crime and detection. And I do wonder whether you wish to take this forward in any way in the future. Clearly, we don't want to wait until next December for us to have a response to this. And I do wonder whether it's something which Scrutiny Board wishes to have a task and finish group about, because it's clearly of an issue of concern, because we raised it as such in our meeting in December.
Okay. Seb.
So just a question for Councillor Udall and perhaps for the wider group. I'm slightly concerned through my casework of a rise in the number of residents coming to me with reports of anti-Semitism throughout our area. I was wondering if we can have an opportunity to invite the police and discuss this, perhaps at an extra crime and disorder panel, because it is something that I think quite worrying in the world at the moment, that's on the rise, and we need to be doing something to signpost. And there's nothing on the County Council website at all to signpost to people, and there's nothing actually in West Mercia that seems quite substantial of what we could do. So I was just wondering if Councillor Udall would be willing, or if we could have a task and finish perhaps.
I was just nattering to Sam as you were suggesting that, Seb. It could be something that we put on our list of things to do. Richard?
Yeah, I have picked up the Jewish community in Worcestershire is incredibly low, mostly because people do not use the census to actually identify themselves as Jewish for obvious concerns and reasons. I think the actual Jewish community is a lot higher than that has been identified. I've picked up similar issues historically, where bacon sandwiches have been pushed through letterboxes, and sounds of hissing to replicate gas chambers has been used as Jewish people walk past. I'm aware these problems do exist in this county, and I think Adrian Chris, former county councillor from Rubery, I can't remember the name of the organisation he's a member of, but it's very much the group which actually protects the Jewish community from anti-Semitic crime. And I think it may be worthwhile inviting him and the police to a future meeting to discuss this issue. And it's not just about anti-Semitism, it's about hate crime as a total. And I think there is a huge problem in Worcestershire which we're not identifying. And one of the groups which significantly is affected more than any other is the transgender community, who are suffering more and more and more from hate crime, and it's something which we have not been able to address, especially since the Supreme Court ruling, which has actually intensified that kind of abuse and hate. So I think we need to look wider at all white hate crime, not just anti-Semitism, but anti-Semitism is certainly a problem.
Thank you, Richard. We'll stick it on our list. Jenny.
Thank you. I just wondered if we needed any scrutiny on the Crisis Resilient Fund in regards to people sourcing additional financial support for heating oil and rural communities in particular. Obviously, this is something that is a conflict with me working in the oil industry, but we have got people ringing up and who can't afford the minimum delivery of 500 litres at the moment, which is over £700. Twice what it normally would be. Obviously, as a local government, we're the ones that are rolling this out. So I just wondered whether which panel really needed to look at this, or whether it's something we look at ourselves. Thank you.
Look at OSPB. Nat.
Yeah, thanks for raising that, Jenny. Also, LPG, which I don't think is covered by any of the grants and any of the support available, and a lot of our residents are on LPG. So I don't know where it goes, but I think it's a discussion that we need to have. Thanks.
So this is all about fuel poverty, impacted obviously by the crisis in the Gulf. I've written it down, and we might return to that very subject in a moment. So that's the wrap up from all the panel chairs. Thank you. That was a more expansive section than we usually manage, so I feel as though I know a bit more than I did half an hour ago. We're going to look at the future work programme, and I'm going to be talking about task and finishes as well. Let's do a task and finish first of all. So last time, we had at least 3 different ideas, all expressed with some strength, about deploying a task and finish to one topic area or another. I said to you, okay, you're going to have to sing for your supper here. You're going to have to make your case. Now, as of today, only one person has done that, and that came in on Friday, and officers haven't had a chance to reflect on it. So I'm going to give you one more cycle to make that case. So Josh has, but there were 2 other bids I recall on the day, and I said, look, guys, you're going to have to make your case, and we're going to do that through examining your proposal against the established criteria. That means providing Sam and her team with your proposal, okay, so that we can then have something probably to vote on, which would be an unusual circumstance for OSPB, because I don't like doing that. Mel.
Chair, sorry, may I say in my defence, I liaised with Richard and Roger, and I was going to put forward the paper, but I did actually move house 2 weeks ago today, and it's all just gone a bit awry.
God,
so
if you're moving house, Mel, I'm amazed you're here. No,
only
Josh,
5 minutes up the road, I'm still in Claines.
Oh, is it? Are you closer?
Yes, I do. I think that's just more modern house, easier to manage.
In
free up
Pershall?
some time. No, in Claines.
Oh.
Thanks.
Josh, you were the one who did get something in, although Sam tells me that she hasn't had a chance to reflect on it. Josh, do you want to say anything?
Thank you. And I did get it in. I'll get my excuses in as well. This will be fun. I have 2 children and a lot of things that went up. And hence why I didn't get it in by the 9th of March. I have liaised with Councillor May, and there's a slight edit I want to do on it anyway. So I'll get in touch with you regarding that.
I thought it was quite cute, Councillor Karen.
Yeah. So absolutely, we are working through this cross-party, Josh and I, and actually, of course, we'd like to look into this. Thank you.
So what I'm going to say is, can we please have this as an agenda item for our next meeting, and hopefully by then we know what we're going to have to decide. We'll have something on paper that's been gone through the officer protocols to justify its time, because these are the people who have to support all the meetings and everything else, provide the witnesses and everything else. Okay, so I'm going to move on, unless you tell me otherwise, to the Overview and Scrutiny Performance Board Future Work Programme. If you could quickly find that. Now, here we are on the 25th of March. Now, technically, there's not another meeting scheduled. So, 24th of June. Now, I think that's ridiculous. That's 3 months. We can do some business in that interim. So I'm going to suggest a meeting in May. Okay. And I'm not going to talk about the date now. We'll get officers to canvass your availability. But assuming we do meet in May, what would you like on the agenda? And I wonder whether you would like the fuel poverty issue that you raised, Jenny and Richard, whether we can actually stick that as an agenda item. Richard, then Josh.
Don't disagree with that as a possibility, but based on the success of today and getting outside organisations in, the organisation which I believe would be most beneficial for us would be Severn Trent Water, with the issues which they are creating across the county, not only on highways issues, but on water supply. And I think that might be a very productive form of scrutiny for us. But just worthy of consideration, that's all I ask.
Yeah, thanks. I would like an opportunity to see and discuss the priorities of the administration and the plan of the administration at this committee at some point.
I think that'd be really good. Let's see what the annual meeting of council does, because I don't know if anyone in this room has any idea about where we go from here. So let's see what the annual council produces, and then we'll ask that leadership to come and talk to us about their corporate priorities, which we've been talking about for a year now. Josh.
Thank you. Couple of points. First of all, when we're trying to get extra meetings in, on a personal note, and I think one of the things we always say is these meetings are well in advance. But those of us who work, I work full time. As I said, previously I have 2 young children as well. To just keep putting in emergency meetings causes a lot of issues for those of us who work. So unless there's an absolute need for it, I don't understand why we put in emergency meetings. The only 3 council meetings I've missed since being elected 5 years ago, 2 have happened quite recently because emergency meetings were put in and I couldn't get that time off work, and the other was when my second born child was being born on the same day as a full council meeting. So I'd really so what? It's one way of getting out of a meeting. So can we please, unless it's an emergency reason, not have emergency meetings put in? On Councillor Oodle's point about bringing Severn Trent, as much as I've enjoyed today and talking to people because it's been a big issue, this council is going bankrupt. I cannot believe that we haven't got other things that we need to discuss to try and ensure that we get on top of the budget and make sure that the finances are in a better position. I think every time I've heard you speak, Councillor Wells, as chair of OSPB, you've said budget hasn't happened early enough. So why are we not pushing that every other meeting or every meeting there's something in here about what we're going to do it? We hear constantly, and I've heard it environment now, the word transformation, which means nothing to me. But if they've got a transformation plan, why isn't that the next thing that's coming forward to OSPB, so we can understand a lot further out what the problems are and how we can resolve them?
We can multitask.
Just give us a moment. I'm trying to capture those points, Josh. I'm going to ask Sam why it is that we haven't got a meeting for 3 months. Is that just always the case? I don't recall a 3-month gap ever before.
It's not for 3 months, though, is it? It's 2, 'cause it's the end of March.
April, May, June.
It's 2 months.
April, May, June. That's 3 months.
Chair, we agree these at we agree these at annual meeting. If we had a problem with that, we should have raised it at annual meeting.
Sam, could we ask Sam to answer these questions?
When I was planning the meetings, I had to look back at what we'd done previously, and I noticed that the April meeting was a meeting that had been previously cancelled. And then during May, we normally meet after the panels, and we've got some panels in June. But I'm happy to add another panel date in if that's what members would prefer. It's not a problem.
No.
No, can I just say, as one of the full-time workers as well, I perhaps echo John. I can't keep taking time off. I book it in advance. I think it's really important that the PwC transformation project comes to OSPB, but I don't know why that can't be in June. I think if we're going to talk about equality of contribution, we can't keep adding and changing because we want to perhaps fill time. We've got to just stick to what was agreed at full council, because that's what we agree as councillors. And I don't think a 1 month delay is going to change anything radically just because we want to meet again. I don't know if colleagues are agreeing, but I wouldn't be there, perhaps out of principle now, that we can't keep adding.
The reason for the gap is there's never been meetings in April for the primary reason it's the run up to the elections and it's a purdah territory, and we have always considered that there's always a risk of breaking purdah if there's a scrutiny meeting in that period. And consequently, the first meeting of the scrutiny board has always been after the annual meeting of council, which would take us into late May, early June. That's the reason why there's the gap. I still think we have got elections in Worcestershire this year, so that purdah period should still be probably recognised and respected. But I'm more than happy to be flexible, and I think one of the things about scrutiny is the need to be flexible and meet when we're required to meet, because obviously we can't always be the author of their own agendas. Sometimes things happen which make us have to meet.
Go on, Roger.
Yes, I concur, actually. I wouldn't want a meeting in April or May, really, because we have an election in Redditch, as you know, and that is on the 7th of May, so I don't think I could attend anything in April or early May anyway.
So Richard's given us his view about why we don't meet in April and May. Sam has given her professional view as to why that was the case. Usually, after an election, OSPB does not meet in that month of May and would not have met in April. So this is historic, Josh. But it wouldn't necessarily apply to every year. But in the April before an election and the May after an election, we tend not to meet. Now, the next scheduled meeting is on the 24th of June, which is one day less than 3 months. Now, if you're saying you don't want to meet in that 12-week period, I'm guided by you as always. I don't like putting extra meetings in, Josh, and I really am conscious because you never let me forget that you work, as indeed does Marcus and in fact other people. So we don't have to meet in that 12-week period. The fact that there are elections in Redditch is of no issue or consequence to me whatsoever. That's an issue for Redditch, not for OSPB here today. We don't work around that at all. If you're saying you don't want to meet, then we will not meet. And then what we should be talking about then is what we do with the 24th of June. Richard Udall has suggested Severn Trent, but there was also a suggestion, Richard, of fuel poverty. We could possibly aim at both, and maybe one of them gets delivered.
Transformation.
It'll be too late in the game for fuel poverty by then. That's why I said it might need to go to a different scrutiny panel.
Yeah, it could go to a panel. Karen.
Crisis and resilience is the old household support fund, and that would not ordinarily have gone to corporate and communities to be discussed, and has historically.
So, Josh, the other point that you made, I think, was about transformation.
Transformation, we can hear it. I don't know if anyone else does it. But
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I don't know if everyone else hears it, but that's like the buzzword. Committees now is transformation. Other than looking it up in the dictionary for what it actually means, I don't know what it actually means to Worcestershire, so it'd be great to have that in June.
I totally agree with you. Unfortunately, we've lost our cabinet member for transformation.
He's still a interim cabinet member for highways and transport and Doge. Yeah.
Is that as well?
Yeah.
I hadn't appreciated that. So he's got 2 cabinet posts. I didn't realise. Thank you. So that being the case, you could invite Nick to our next meeting, and you could ask him where he's got to in terms of transformation. Would you like to do that?
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, that's agreed. So we've got 3 items on that agenda, potentially 3 items. And of course, hopefully, guys, you can resolve your issues relating to the task and finish. Okay. I think we've sorted all that out. Thank you. That took longer than I expected. Karen?
So we're going to wait until June to decide about the task and finish?
I'm trying to get the mood of the meeting here, Karen.
Well, I just think that our education provision with the district plan moving on and probably moving on in other parts of this chamber as well, could we almost do a vote as to which topic we'd like to have raised and discussed and start the work? Would that be possible?
And I've put it in already. So.
The proposals need to be approved by the OSPB. That's stipulated in the Constitution.
In public, Sam? What I'm proposing is that we have a round-robin email and we vote on it, and then
I can look. Let me look. At
would that be possible? Thank you for looking.
The Constitution does allow for that, because we've previously raised that, and I've looked into it because constitutional nerd. We can, as long as people have adequate notice, we can do it via email and approve it. Obviously, through Tom there. But.
Yeah, I think I might need to be involved in that at some point. So thank you, Karen. You were asking, I think, a moment ago about the mood of the meeting towards not having a meeting for 13 weeks. Josh has made the case, and I think one or two, Seb has as well. Should we have a vote on it?
In May.
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest 2 months from here, late May. We've got at least 3 items, mega items that you want to discuss. Sorry, Josh?
So which one? So what we're voting for? So we're voting on a meeting in May for what reason? That's the point. If it's what is going to happen in May that can't wait till June?
Okay, Karen, you're making the case for the other side of that. Make your case.
No, actually, I was making the case for the task group, Chairman. I'm keen to get that piece of work started, as we haven't got a task group underway. I do think we should be looking at one of these subject matters. I take on board, if people have got work commitments, I absolutely do. But how much ahead would you need to be given the dates to book time off work?
Josh, I'm a bit confused here. I mean, presumably you'd want to be involved in this task and finish.
I don't like the premise of the question. I work full time. I'm able to get time off work to be able to come to meetings. I then have to book holiday if additional meetings have to happen. Others have to book holiday for that or have to work different days. As I've said to you previously in a private email, what you would then suggest to me is that I take that holiday off and not spend it with my 4-year-old daughter and 18-month-old daughter. They don't choose to have a politician as a dad, and I don't think that I should have to take time off work to come to a meeting unless it's an emergency. If it's an emergency and it's well planned for about a month in advance, then yes, we can have that discussion. But the premise of the question you're giving to me is that why we should have that meeting, and why wouldn't you want to be involved because you want to get that task and finish group? I don't think that's fair.
No, you've misunderstood me completely.
I don't think I did.
I'll try again. This is getting a bit tedious though, Josh. I am indulging you and I have all morning. The question I was raising to you was that a task and finish by definition will be meeting outside these dates. And I was just wondering, given your work commitments, how you could respond to meetings that are arranged almost every 3 or 4 weeks. That was my question.
I can deal with meetings that are planned. I can't deal with meetings that are emergency, and that's what the difference is.
Okay, we'll let that issue rest, I think. Okay, so I think what we've decided is that we will consider via email, if it's constitutionally allowed, a task and finish, okay? So it'll be up to the proposers to set out their case and measure their idea against the criteria that's been established by the council. And then we will, if we are allowed to, take this around an email list of OSPB board members, all 14, and see what comes out the other side. We shall not meet, because Josh has made his case very forcefully, that we will, don't try again, I think we've got it. That we shall not meet until the 24th of June, which is the next scheduled meeting. At that meeting, we could potentially look at fuel poverty, which is something that some people have raised, and the condition, and Severn Trent coming along as someone whose business is attracting a great deal of public criticism. And also, the third item that you're bidding for is to get Nick here to talk to him and understand what his proposals are for transformation. So you've got 3 meaty pieces of work there.
Chair, I suggest that the fuel poverty one is transferred to the corporate and communities panel for more urgent investigation, which will leave it to just the 2 issues, which I think will be manageable in bite-sized chunks.
Sorry to be discourteous, Chair, but we are struggling with our work programme with time-sensitive information. We've already added an additional meeting to respond to member concerns. We can programme it in, but it won't be before June.
Okay, you've heard that. That being the case, I don't think there's anything else I can add or subtract from that. That was what can I say? I'm trying very hard to accommodate you all, and you all have we live in slightly different worlds with different time pressures on you. And I'm doing my very, very best to accommodate your needs and requests. And for that, I will now conclude the meeting, and thank you for your attendance.